Okay, and we're live. So, Kat, I was talking to Dan about this idea I've been having for a story I wanted to do, and I was saying how I wanted one of the characters to be an objectivist, but I kind of needed some input from an objectivist, and I wanted to do a video talking about it. And I think I remember you saying you were an objectivist.
Yes, I am.
Um, yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about this. Can you explain this to me and some other people who don't know that much about like what it is exactly? Because I tried researching it, I couldn't really understand it.
Oh yeah, no, that definitely that's one thing that even I experience is not exactly understanding what it was in the beginning, because the founder of Objectivism, Ayn Rand, though she doesn't explain things in layman's terms, she uses very highfalutin language, so that is a problem. But the thing is, her ideas are sound and they do work. So, objectivism, as Ayn Rand explained in many of her works, is simply a person that values logic and then applies said logic to their principles, their values, their choices, and actions. So, essentially, it's someone who stands by their principles and is rational when they go about it. So, for example, you're not going to be petty to the next person just because they were petty to you, because you go into rationalize it and say to yourself, you know what, it's not worth my time. I can invest myself in something much more productive.
Okay. Yeah, because I tried looking up some of it, and I should probably give you some context to this. The reason why in the story it was a Star Wars story, I wanted to make a Jedi who was morally an objectivist or something of that nature. So that's why I was wanting to kind of learn a little bit. Would you say there's a downside to objectivism?
The only downside is that it's an Herculean feat in order to be as principled as objectivism demands you, because the most objectivist people we've ever come across have been in the fiction of Ayn Rand. Because even, for example, we can look at someone like Jordan Peterson, and you think it'd be the ideal of it, but there have been times where he's fumbled. So, for example, he's someone who values freedom, who's against government overreach, but when it came to Winnie the Flu, he was the person that was saying people should get vaccinated.
Winnie
You
the
know, he was the yeah, I have to say that, YouTube TOS. But the thing is, he was there saying, oh no, people should get vaccinated. Obviously, he did change his position when he saw what was happening. But the thing is, it's the same when it came to people having anonymous identities online. He was against the anonymity. And for
I
me, it's
think.
like,
Oh, sorry for interrupting you.
yeah. And
No,
for me, it's like,
you go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. And for me, the problem with that is it's like you need to be consistent. And that's one thing when it comes to certain issues that Jordan Peterson struggles with. And a lot of people struggle with it. Even it's like there are some like subjects where I'm inconsistent about my opinion. And I won't deny that that happens. But that's the only issue with objectivism. It's that it's very difficult to find people who are consistent 100% of the time, because that's essentially what objectivism is. It's being consistent with your principles and values, and the only time we've ever seen that be achieved is in the writing of Ayn Rand.
Okay, this is why I found it kind of interesting because I hear people, for lack of better terms, they bitch about objectivism. Like, I can only name two people that, aside from you, I've heard of being objectivists. Aside from you, there's Ayn Rand and Steve Ditko. And whenever I hear people bitch about it, all I'm left thinking is, so what was objectivism's sin here? Being consistent, having
No,
more a line.
the issue a lot of people have with objectivism, Nathan, is that a lot of them can't be. They can't be, and they can't be consistent. They want to have, I guess, very complex thoughts on things, and to be an objectivist means that that's not possible. At least not by, I think, the concept itself.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
imagine
no,
how infuriating it's me because I see idiots like Nerd Sync bitch about it, and they give no real constructive argument against it. That's where I get annoyed.
No, no.
the main
I said
yeah.
this before. He just hates the facts that the co-creator of Spider-Man wasn't a liberal. I said that before. I
I
said
know it's
that
still
before, but I'll say it again.
yeah.
No, the issue that most people have with objectivism It's that Ayn Rand was the only philosopher, no one else has done this, to make a case for the individual. Everyone else makes a case for the collective. That's why you usually only see other philosophers being applied to the ideas of collectivism. Kant, Aristotle, a lot of these people. It's because they made a lot of cases for the collective rather than the individual. And Ayn Rand, to the best of my knowledge, and even from the little research I've done, is that she is the only one that made a case for the individual, and that's where the problem comes in, especially when it came to how she spoke. So she came from communist Russia, immigrated to the US, worked her way up into being a success. So already now looking at where she came from and how hard she worked, this is someone who values meritocracy, who values people being able to use their abilities to the fullest. This is someone who is concerned with the individual. And the thing is, some people will obviously make the argument and say, "Oh no, in objectivism is evil because it says you need to be selfish," and that's not the case, because one of the things Ayn Rand talks about when it comes to charity is that she says it needs to be voluntary. You shouldn't be forced to be charitable. It's the same with taxation. She views taxation as evil. She says, you know what, taxation can exist, but it needs to be voluntary. You need to want to give your money, and you need to want to give it willingly. You can't be forced to. That's where the problem comes in, and that's mainly what she talks about is choice.
No,
Because even
that's
yeah,
oh, that's where me and the collectivists disagree. It's like I believe you got to do all these things, but it should be your choice. You shouldn't be forced to do it.
Or browbeat into doing it.
yeah, and that's where the problem comes in, is that Ayn Rand was a big proponent of choice, because there's this one video that I always go back to watch of hers, just to remind me to be consistent. So she's been interviewed on a talk show, and the interviewer asked her. He said, "How do you feel about gay marriage?" And she says, "I find homosexuality disgusting, but I don't think the government should have a say in what two consenting adults do in their private life." And I'm like, that's consistent, because her main thing was keeping government small, keeping government out of people's private lives. And she was consistent, because she could have easily said, "Oh, you know what, I find it disgusting and I feel like the government should do something about it." And she was like, no, she was consistent. Every issue you asked her on, she gave a consistent answer. She never strayed from her philosophy. And people will bring up the fact that, oh no, when she was old, she lived off government welfare. It's like, that was the money she paid, and that's how the system was set up. If she had a choice, she wasn't going to live off that money, but she didn't have a choice. She paid the money. It's like, oh, let me have all this money I paid for years go to waste and not be used on me. It's like, no, it's your hard work, it's your money. You should benefit from it. As much as she hated the system, it's like, oh, let me have my money go to waste. It doesn't make sense. And that's the only time people can criticize us. Oh, she lived off welfare in her old age, or she cheated on her husband. But one thing with her cheating on her husband, I don't know if it's true. That was something that was in the film they made on her life. But the
I
thing is, I
heard
don't know if
her
the,
husband cheated on her. I heard about that.
I heard it was
yeah, no, that's
consensual. I heard they both did it consensually.
Yeah.
yeah, that's the thing for me. It's like there's no consistency on the story, because on one side you'll hear, oh no, she cheated. On the other side you'll hear, no, he cheated. And
That's why
and for me, it's like,
I hate that drama shit. It's too wiggly wobbly all over the fucking place.
exactly. And the one thing for me that I doubt wasn't her that cheated is because this was a woman who was fine looking after her husband. She's like, because the thing is, her husband was a painter, and she's like, yeah, no, I love my husband. Um, I work hard so he can do his painting. I was like, huh? Such a woman does exist, that will be the
Hey, you know
breadwinner,
what?
so the husband can be at home.
People have said that her fans, some of her objectivist fans, tried to tell her that her husband cheating on her was an objective choice he made, and according to them, she would get angry and would just completely like I think ban or do something to those people. Like she'd stop interacting with them. I heard about that. I don't know if it's true though.
Yeah, the funny thing about that, the funny thing about what you just brought up, about how they would attack her about like living off of, did you say it was welfare or whatever?
Welfare, yeah.
It, it was
Here's
welfare.
Ditko got attacked for the same thing. Like again, I go back to the prick known as Nerd Sync. He made a video lambasting and bashing these two, and then he ends it acting all like he's all kumbaya and let's all come together. And I'm like, you spent a whole video bitching about this guy, and now you want to act all come together. Like,
No, that's what I hate about people. That's what I hate about people that say they want to be neutral, but it's clear there's a bias. Like if you want to make an argument of neutrality and unity, then you can't show your bias. I don't care if you have it or not. You can't show it.
I know, but it's like they have no real argument against these. Like from what I know of Ayn Rand, which isn't much, but I do know some about her life. I don't see why she is reviled as much as she is. Like it drives me nuts because I never hear like Kat. You've done a better job of defending her, or at least making her sound better to me than anyone has ever done at vilifying her. It's really aggravating that people do that to the dead. But yeah,
you should watch some Ayn Rand interviews.
There's a lot of content to watch, but I will say this: you will need to like pause every few minutes so you can be like, okay, what did she say?
Yeah, like I find objectivism kind of interesting, and I wanted to say this earlier when we started. When you said like because of how she writes, it's kind of hard to understand. I would say that is true of most philosophical writings. Like I remember back in college. I remember one time I was at the library. I found a book of philosophy, and I tried to read Hegel. I gotta confess something. For the life of me, I could not understand a damn word this guy said. It was all flying over my head like an engine arrow.
The thing is, I'm having flashbacks to that 1 year of philosophy I done, and it's like I don't want to go back because a lot of philosophers write like that, and then you sit and then you're like, what the fuck are you saying? Can you please explain it in simple English?
Yeah, like I can't understand Nietzsche because another thing is the story I wanted there to be some commentary on nihilism and existentialism. I tried learning stuff like the will to power, but I couldn't understand what I was reading. Like I had to find simplified versions of explanations like Hello Future Me. He did a video saying Sauron is a Nietzschean villain. He did a better job of simplifying it. So these philosophers back in the day, they were confusing as hell. Like I had no idea how they were taken seriously. Then again, they were academics, so that's probably why. But anyway.
Yeah, no, like the one thing, for example, one thing a lot of people always bring up about Ayn Rand is that they'll say, oh no, Bioshock was a critique of objectivism because the underwater city of, what was it called again? Rapture is to showcases what would happen if the best of the best people lived with each other. And here's a funny thing. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
I think so, yeah.
Oh. Yeah, no, because the thing is, I just couldn't see my icon flashing to indicate that I'm speaking. But this is the thing, is that they'll say, oh no, Rapture was basically what an objectivist society would be like. And then I'm like, there's one crucial issue, is that Ayn Rand talks about this, and she says, every single person will be productive, and they will do something that requires their skills. So the thing that happened in Rapture is that no one took care of the plumbing. I'm like, someone would have taken care of the plumbing because that was an opportunity for them to make money. Because this was the thing, there wasn't a massive amount of plumbers in Rapture. Someone could have cornered the market and made a profit. Because this is also another thing about Ayn Rand. She is a capitalist. She believes in capitalism. So
I hate, yeah. I hate these assholes who always try to say, okay, you guys clearly don't understand the politics of the artist when it comes to the art, but they do the exact same fucking thing when it comes to another artist. Like, there were people who genuinely assumed that Steve Ditko was a hippie like them. And when they found out his actual views, that's when they were shocked. The same thing with J.R.R. Tolkien. They thought J.R.R. Tolkien was a hippie like them, and because the hippies made his book popular. And when they actually like read the letters he gave to his son and found out where his views aligned, then they started trashing him because they didn't realize for I don't know how fucking long that he didn't agree with them.
Yeah, Kat, that's actually funny. Like, I don't know if you've read his letters, but the stuff this guy believed was just like off the wall. Like he almost disowned Lord of the Rings because hippies loved it so much. Like he hated hippies that much. It was kind of funny.
No, the thing is, I'm not surprised by his views. He did grow up for like a very short time in South Africa, and he was born here, so I'm not surprised by what he said.
But anyway, you were saying,
Yeah, no, but like that's the thing that Dan mentioned is the fact that a lot of people always will say, "Oh no, you don't understand the artist," but it's like you also don't understand the artist because that's the thing. It's like with Ayn Rand when people criticize her, and especially if it's like in entertainment medium, they don't know how to engage with her ideas properly. And even someone like Jordan Peterson couldn't critique her properly. And that's my thing. It's because Jordan Peterson, as much as he's about the individual and being responsible and all that stuff, he doesn't agree with Rand. And I'm like, my guy, the two of you would be on the same page. She
I
believes in
think he's a
individualism. Yeah.
centrist. I could be wrong here,
Oh,
but I think he's a centrist. I think.
oh no, the thing is, he is a centrist. That's the thing, and that's the issue with a lot of his positions because he's a centrist. And like for the longest time, it was like he doesn't care about politics, he's not involved with politics, and up until recently. And that's where the problem comes in. It's because when he was like, "Oh no, people shouldn't be anonymous online," and it's like, my guy, you can't decide if people should make their identities known online or not. You've experienced cancel culture, and you've only been able to survive because you've ascertained enough wealth in order for any attempt to cancel you not to work. But now you're saying to other people who are less well off than you to make their identity known to the culture vultures, as I like to call them, that are going to come and pick at their corpse if they say the wrong thing. And then you also want the government to have easy access to the identities of these people. For example, in the UK, a single mother got arrested by the police, and then they asked her, Is this you on Reddit?" And she's like, "No, I've never been on Reddit." So now imagine you having the police come and arrest you to question you about a post someone else made, but you want people to not be anonymous online. And that's the issue with Jordan Peterson is that he so often, because of his fundamental views as a centrist, is that he often thinks like, oh, he believes in the goodness of people. Now that's the thing. It's like, I don't have an issue. People can be good. But the problem is at the end of the day, we live in a society where it's much more lucrative and beneficial for you to be lazy, to be immoral, to basically be everything that is problematic. It's much easier for that because you're going to get rewarded for it. And so for me, when he says certain things, I'm like, my guy, you should revisit your position, which he does. That's one thing I'll give him. He does go back, reevaluate his position, and he changes. Because, for example, when it came to incels, for example, he would often say, if the women don't want you, then there's something wrong with you, because women get to be picky. But now, after every single instance of him seeing how badly men get treated, especially the men that get called incels, then he's like, yeah, you know what? I'm the king of the incels, and I don't like how they get treated. And I'm like, yes, my guy, you are seeing light. Slowly but surely, you will change your position. Because the thing is, what he doesn't understand is that he'll say, "Oh no, um, the women aren't choosing you because there's something wrong with you." It's like, no. Even if you are the ideal man, if you do anything wrong for that woman to lose interest in you, she'll will immediately leave you. So it's like, even if you do your utmost best, you're not guaranteed a partner. And that's the one thing that he doesn't understand. And you think he would understand that, especially given the fact that he's a clinical psychologist. But sometimes even the people who are the professionals within the industry, even they fumble the bag. Because look at, for example, Sam Harris. He went from "I believe in freedom" to suffering from TDS, and "I wouldn't care if Hunter Biden had dead children in his basement."
yeah, he really.
No, that's why I hate politics in general, because if you get too swayed into them, they could like push you in a certain direction. And I'm talking about all sides here. It's like I have my morals, I have my values, I have my my views, and I don't want politics like affecting them. That's why I try to stay away from it as a whole.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to one thing. Like you mentioned that Iron Man came from Russia, right?
Yep.
I think
Which
she
part
did.
of Russia?
She sounds Russian.
I don't know which part from Russia, but the thing is, it was during the time of the Soviet Union. So she escaped. So she immigrated from Soviet Union Russia. From Soviet Union Russia. That's the time she left and came to America, and then she worked as what do you call the people who get coffee for the people in for like a director and stuff? What do you call them?
An assistant?
Yeah, no. So she was an assistant. She used to get coffee for everyone. She'd help out on scripts, and then eventually ended up writing. Then she wrote her own novel, and that's basically how she became famous. So she literally worked her way up.
Oh, so she was Kathleen Kennedy, but more productive.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah,
Ouch.
but like it doesn't surprise me then that was such a pro-capitalist because like I remember Stefan Molyneux did a couple of videos on her. He never did the last one though. But from what I heard about her childhood and life in Russia, it makes sense she was such a proponent for capitalism because I mean it's a no-brainer. You come from a country where you get fucked over by the government.
Yeah, it makes
Really-
sense how she ended up the way she did.
So yeah, like a lot, and plus her mother was a nightmare from what I hear. So a lot of the things I hear about her later in life make psychological sense. And I'm not a psychologist; I barely know psychology, but it kind of makes some psychological sense to me, at least.
Did
Yeah,
anyone
no,
check
that.
out the Fountainhead?
Excuse me.
Oh, did anyone check out the Fountainhead?
Oh,
I
the
haven't read
found.
any of her.
It's so difficult to find books. I don't know why.
Oh, I never finished it.
Like, oh no,
Um,
the one thing with Ayn Rand, she will write you a whole life story.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, yeah, I tend to write like as much. Like the thing about me with Ryan is I try to write as much as possible within a chapter. Like I try to make pages upon pages for some reason. I don't know why. I find some sick enjoyment in it.
I
But
don't know.
but yeah, so yeah, this is kind of why I'm glad you agreed to this, Cat, because it's really fascinating what you're telling me. Because like I heard Steve Ditko was an objectivist, and he was till the day he died. Like one of his works was a pure objectivist. I swear, English is my first language. Damn, but like I think it was Mr. A, wasn't it, Dan? He was like an objectivist hero, essentially.
Yeah, he was an objectivist hero. He didn't believe Mr. A. You know how most heroes, well, I shouldn't say most heroes, but a lot of heroes like to say that, yeah, we can make good and bad choices, but there's also the middle, and because stories, they tackle the moral complexities. Mr. A wasn't having any of that shit. He was like, no, if you make bad choices, you're a villain. If you make good choices, you're a hero, and I'm going to judge you accordingly by that logic.
Yeah, so like, could objectivism work with a lot of fictional stories? Do you think, Cat, like hero stories, maybe?
Absolutely can work with it because one of the things, but I'm not entirely sure if I'm remembering this correctly. One of the things Ayn Rand believed in is that you should be able to channel your views and your principles into your writing. That's why whenever she wrote about anything, her values and principles would be showcased to the characters. So that was definitely something she believed. And then also for what Dan said earlier about like both sides, this was the interesting thing about Ayn Rand. She had nothing favorable and charitable to say about leftists and conservatives. She would
Ouch.
basically say, yeah, no, she used to be like conservatives nowadays are useless. They're not how they used to be. They don't stand for anything. She would say that. She would say that they have no
She
principles to
sounds like a
stand on.
modern day libertarian.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not
no,
gonna lie. This makes her sound attractive, weirdly enough. I actually liked her by the sound of this.
I heard Steve.
Oh, no.
I heard Steve Ditko is. I heard he was a libertarian too, and apparently his nephew said this. His nephew said when people in an interview, the interviewer asked who did Steve Ditko vote for politically, and his nephew said nobody. And he in the interview wondered why. He said the reason why Steve Ditko didn't vote for any president was because was because none of them promised to stand by the Constitution. That's the reason.
Oh, so they were both like staunch objectivists then, or I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because the thing is, for example, like if there was a politician that would get close to what Ayn Rand would be okay with, it would have been Trump, but she would have also found issues with him because she would have been like, oh, why are you messing with the Second Amendment? Like, why do you want red flag laws, my guy? What are you doing?
Yeah, that would be an issue. Oh, by the way, guys, in case something happens to me, like you stop hearing from me, sometimes my internet acts up whenever I do these, so I might have to restart it every now and then. So if you don't hear from me, that's why. So if you don't hear from me, just continue on.
Dude, I thought you were gonna say that someone was after you, like fucking Sugar from No Country for Old Men. If you don't hear from me, guys, I'm being hunted down.
Hey, there are lots of reasons you probably won't hear from me. One is I get bored real easily. Sometimes I just forget to do things, and sometimes now if I start dating and I met a crazy person, that might be why. But I don't see that happening in the future. But anyway, so yeah, so Ayn Rand, like she actually sounds like a very interesting person, which kind of has me going. All the people who bitch about her, like you guys are, like this woman is fascinating, and I don't mean you guys.
No.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, no. The one thing I wanted to say also is it's a thing that she, like I said, didn't have anything favorable to say about any side. So I remember she was asked, "Do you consider yourself a feminist?" And she's like, "No, I am a male chauvinist."
Wow.
Wow.
Actually, Kat, I don't know about you, but I have family members who are objectivists, and I could never fully agree with them because I think similar to Jordan Peterson, my opinions on things are way too nuanced and complex. And they're just like right down the ringer. They're straightforward with everything. There is no, nuance. I don't want to say there is no nuance, but there is no in the middle opinions with them.
The thing is, what most people who call themselves objectivists, the one they fail to understand at the end of the day is that Ayn Rand, despite being the founder of Objectivism, she understood nuance, and that's one thing a lot of people fail to understand. So, for example, the one thing people will always be like, "But what if you need to help other people?" And then she says, "You can help other people, but you need to make sure that when you are helping them, you are not harming yourself and you're not harming them." So what that basically means is, if I'm giving you money, for example, to help you out, I need to make sure that that money I'm giving you isn't money that I need to spend on myself. That's just excess money I have that I can give you. And then I also make sure that by giving you that money, I'm not enabling you to make bad choices. So for example, let's say you're supposed to use this money to pay your rent, but now you decide to go buy drugs or alcohol. That is basically what she means, is that you can be charitable to people, but you need to make sure that the charity you're giving doesn't harm anyone involved. It's basically, if you've played Knights of the Old Republic 2 and you have that scene with Kreia where you're presented with two choices, either to give this beggar money or to threaten him. And either choice you make results in her lecturing you and saying that was the wrong choice to make because, oh, you gave him the money, now is being targeted by criminals. Oh, you decided now to threaten to beat him up, now he's going to be violent towards other people. And essentially what you need to do if you're an objectivist, you need to consider the consequences of your choice. So if I'm going to give this person money, is it going to harm them? If it isn't going to harm them, like, yeah, no, give money. Because this is what she often said. She's like, let's get rid of government intervention. Let's rather have charities to look after people. Because that's one thing I know that will happen. Because, for example, let's look here in South Africa. The government can't provide basic services. What has happened in the absence of government being able to do these things? We have now had organizations come up and say, you know what, if you guys donate money to us, we'll make sure that we can go and help communities. And that's exactly what's happened. So it it's very much possible for objectivism to be realized in society. The issue at the end of the day is that a lot of people don't fully grasp how to be an objectivist correctly. Because, like I mentioned now, is the fact that Ayn Rand herself was nuanced. She wouldn't just be like, "Oh no, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and it's the only way." She'd give you an option that followed her philosophy that was nuanced, because rather than completely just getting rid of like any form of social safety net, she's like, yeah, no, there can be a social safety net, but a social safety net made by people and not the government.
Oh. Well,
Uh,
I guess this doesn't make me an objectivist, but honestly, when it comes to it, if people want it a certain way and they use their power to make it that way, then to me, I just acknowledge it, whether I like it or not. So it's like if there's a social safety net and it's by the government, and that's the case, I'm like, well, everyone wanted it that way, so I guess that's how it is. I don't really have an opinion on if a social safety net is in the hands of the government or if it's private. I acknowledge it for what it is, but if that's what the people wanted, then that's fine, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't
no, the
know.
thing is, she's in favor of private social safety nets. And the
Yeah.
reason why she's always in favor of private businesses and private individuals taking action is because you can hold them accountable. So, for example, if let's take an example of where Disney wasn't in bed with the government. If Disney messed up and done something that people disliked, people would then go to another business that offers similar products to Disney, and they'd vote with their wallets there, and they'd basically bankrupt Disney. That's what it would happen, and the reason why is because you can hold that private business accountable, because they don't have to worry about government giving them a bailout, because there isn't a bailout. They don't have to worry about like the mainstream media pushing their propaganda, because the main reason why Disney still is able to exist is because what's happened in society is that we've made it into a moral duty to defend corporations. And that's the reason why these corporations are able to stay afloat, aside from ESG, is due to the fact that people will literally go and spend their money just to be like, oh, I showed the racist that diversity and representation wins in the end.
hmm.
Yeah, let's support the company that says diversity and representation over and over again. Meanwhile, in international areas, they have children working like slaves.
Oh, and
Like,
they
Yeah, no,
shrunk the black poster for China.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like it's like I don't get it with some people. These companies are only as virtuous and as progressive as long as it takes for them to make a quick buck. And I've spoken to some people on Twitter about that, and they know this. They understand this, but they're fine with it anyway. They don't care. It's like
oh
with
yeah,
how it's like you're a very modern progressive person. I tell this guy, and yeah, you basically you feel this way about all these things, yet you're perfectly fine with the corporation being this way because they say what you say. As long as they say what you say, you don't care how morally corrupt they are. And they told me, yeah. I'm like, that is questionable.
Yep. And Disney is as morally questionable as it gets. Like, they are, well, I wouldn't call them the Empire because that would be an insult to the Empire in Star Wars,
They
but
couldn't be
they are
that.
pretty close. I'm sorry, but I have more respect for the
Actually, you
Empire
know
than I do
what?
Disney.
I'll give you an example, dude. I'll give you an example. George Lucas, he's a 60s liberal. He's from that era. He makes it clear that he wants corporations and government separate. He doesn't want corporations influencing government like democracy to, corrupt the system in his mind. And that stuff with Rob DeSantis when he basically revealed that Disney is getting payouts by these political parties from state to state, and all these people in government are giving Disney these handouts, and they're giving them early access to build their fucking theme parks. And I'm like, okay, how would anyone be okay with this? But a lot of Disney Star Wars fans and Disney fans are angry at Ron DeSantis for doing what he did to Disney by taking that away from them in Florida. And look, regardless of how you feel about the guy or politics or whatever bullshit, that's fine. But it's like, if you're a fan of George Lucas and you say that you have the same politics as him, how could you be okay with this? Like,
the reason why they're okay with it is because one thing you need to understand is these people don't have any sense of individual identity, and they have no principles and no values that are consistent. They do have principles and values, but they're very inconsistent. It changes like a woman's mood changes when she's on a period. That's how these people work.
God. Oh, God. You know what? You and Nathan are cut from the same cloth. I swear.
I mean, there's a reason why I talk to Kat. I mean, I like his personality.
Yeah. Well, look, regardless of what politics you have or how you feel about anything in the world, if you claim you're like this person, then where's the consistency? It's like people say that George Lucas is just like them. He's just like them. But when I do the research, there's a lot of positions and stances George has that I know these people hate. They would hate this man. So it's like, yeah, it's like he is a progressive, but he's a progressive from an era where, by today's standards, that's considered, conservative. So it's like, yeah, exactly. So when it comes to stuff like not wanting corporations and the government working together, George has a strong opinion on that. And these people are fine with it because these corporations are saying what they want them to say. Diversity and representation and all that bullshit.
Yeah, no, the thing is...
No, you go
Yeah, no, you can finish, Nathan. No, you can finish.
I was going to say, imagine how shallow and, I don't know, soulless you have to be that you're willing to side with basically an empire that bastardizes the legacy of men for a living.
Yeah,
yeah. Oh, you were saying, Kat? Sorry.
The main issue at the end of the day, it's like I was saying, these people, they have principles and values, but it's very inconsistent. And the main thing they're concerned about is a sense of belonging and authority over other people. They want to be the model authorities that the conservatives were back in the 70s and 80s. That is what they want. Because if we go back 20 years, the left was anti-establishment, anti-war, anti-corporations, and 20 years.
Yeah.
And now, like 20 years now, like in the present, it's like no, it's the reverse. And that's the thing at the end of the day. And the reason why it became that is because you saw that they started becoming inconsistent with their principles, and they became more concerned with authority. And that's where the problem comes in at the end of the day. That these people are very inconsistent because, for example, let's look at it like this. They will tell you, oh, we value black voices. Black voices need to be heard. Candace Owens or Kanye West speaks, it's like, nope, they need to shut up. They cannot say anything. They are Uncle Toms. They need to be silenced. But it's like, you said black voices should be heard. You're two black voices, but you don't like what they're saying.
Yeah, and they try to silence them. I mean, Kanye West is now being sued for making just a statement that is more than likely true.
That's what I hate is how it's like I don't hate anyone for what they believe, even if I disagree with them. I hate it when people aren't consistent. And these people, I'm not going to say all, but a lot of these people aren't consistent at the end of the day.
Yeah, I hate hypocrites and frauds. That's why I hate J.J. Abrams and Red Letter Media, because I look at them as frauds. I mean, granted, I have other reasons for hating them, but that's the main reason I can rationalize it. Like Red Letter Media, you could tell me tomorrow that every one of them had the same thing that unfortunately took
I think their views are flawed in my opinion, but I don't think Red Letter Media are hypocritical. I think they've been consistent.
Oh no, but they do attack George Lucas nonstop, from what I hear, and I'm just like, yeah.
No, that's what I mean, dude. I think their opinions and views on stuff like Star Wars and George are flawed. I think they're wrong, but I've never seen them be hypocritical on it.
Yeah, they're still douches and hipster douches at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, but let me put it this way: they and Jar Jar Abrams could catch the thing that took Freddie Mercury from us. I would probably feel a little bad, but more of me would be saying, "Oh, I was wrong. There is proof of God."
I mean, I don't hate everything J.J. Abrams. I do like the Kelvin trilogy. I do like the Kelvin Star Trek trilogy, and I do like a couple seasons of Lost. But overall, the dude has not done much for me.
Yeah, I
The thing
consider
with
him a king
J.J.
of
Abrams is that he needs other people working with him. It's the same with that lady of Wonder Woman, that she needs someone there in order to make sure that her stuff is good.
Who, Gal Gadot?
Uh,
Oh, no, Patty
Not
Jenkins. Patty. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Patty Jenkins. Like Patty Jenkins needs people around her to make sure that
Oh,
she
yeah.
actually does a good job. Because let's look at it. Patty Jenkins, Wonder Woman, the first one, good movie, not great, not exceptional. It was good. Wonder
Yeah.
Woman 1984, absolute shit. But now this is also another thing, is that we also need to also look at things like, okay, the Patty Jenkins actually, was she actually responsible for the first Wonder Woman, or was it a case of what happens in Hollywood where they bring on a woman director, a woman writer, but then the actual people that directed and wrote the script are men who signed NDAs not to say, oh, you know what, this was my work.
Honestly, I've heard rumors that she got annoyed because Zack Snyder was there too much during the production.
yeah, I never
I don't.
saw Wonder Woman, but I have one complaint about it though. I think they race swapped another redhead with Artemis. That is my one complaint.
No, the first one is really good. And honestly, I'm saying, how long have we waited for a Wonder Woman movie? But the second one is so fucking dumb. Like literally, it's not a smart movie. It's so inconsistent. Makes no
But
sense.
do superhero movies need to be smart though? Do they need to be?
No, they need to be good in quality. And Wonder Woman 84 was neither. It's like a guilty pleasure. You watch it because you know how bad it is.
I consider not a guilty. Well, I don't think I have a guilty pleasure. Maybe Evil Dead 2 is kind of like a guilty pleasure. Like I like it, but I don't like it as much as the first Evil Dead.
What about Batman and Robin?
Oh, I only saw that once as a kid. I probably should have watched it again because I like the lady they had playing Poison Ivy. For
Yeah, I look
purely
at entertainment in terms of quality, Nathan. I look at entertainment, I guess, in an objective way. It's like whatever you're doing, whatever you're going for, it needs to meet the standard you set. If it doesn't, then you failed. That's just
I
how it
think
is.
everything just has to have a point for me. So, like, I remember I heard this about Lovecraft once. Poe once said that everything is there to have a certain effect, or Lovecraft, I can't remember which one. I think everything in a story should have that. So everything should be there to serve a purpose or to do something. It shouldn't just be there for as a decoration or window dressing. There should be something for that thing to do or for it to serve a certain purpose. Or you can have extra shit in your story, but depending on what you're going for, sometimes you need to have fat to cut out, I guess.
Oh no, but that's it's like if you look at a lot of the shows at the end of the day, and films and everything that gets produced now, is that it has no purpose aside from being propaganda. But the problem with propaganda is that if you don't do it well, people are going to dislike it. Because that's the thing, it's like propaganda films back in the day. That shit used to be fire. Like, I'd be like, damn, I'll go fight in a war. Because that's the thing, it's like back then, people understood it that you need to have a good story to carry to carry the message. You cannot have the message carry the story. It doesn't work like that. You need to be telling a story, and then through telling that story, impart values onto people. And that's where
Yeah,
the
it's
problem
like when
comes in at the end of the day.
my film teacher always said this, cat in school. He's like, remember, guys, art before politics. He always said that.
I mean, I try not to have politics. I wouldn't mind having philosophy in a story. I mean, granted, I see this with anime and other stuff. Like some good stories have philosophy in it, but it's subtle. It flies over your head sometimes.
No, I'd argue most good stories have philosophy. And I know
Yeah,
some people
beating you over
disagree
the
with
head.
me, but philosophy and politics, or morals and politics, are not one and the same. You can connect the two, but they're not one and the same. Philosophy and morals are on its own. And I think if you truly want to strengthen your work, regardless if there's politics in there or not, you need philosophy and morals to some degree.
Uh, Well,
Yeah.
philosophy, yes, and morals, yes, but politics, unless it's been constructed within the world of that story, you can do without it.
Well, honestly, and a lot of people may hate me for saying this, but we honestly need more apolitical works. Like there are a lot of apolitical works out there, but in modern times, most art has some connection to politics, some connection, even if it's like minuscule. And I
Yeah,
Wait,
honestly,
no.
wait,
oh,
apolitical stuff in this day and age?
Yeah.
Why don't we ask for flying pigs and hot redheads to be knocking down my door?
I just want I like the comics back then. You had some comics that did delve into politics, but you had a shit ton of comics that had nothing political to say. Yeah, there were morals and philosophy, but you had a shit ton that had nothing political to say, and they were awesome. And I
Oh
miss
yeah,
that.
yeah. You had this with Under the Red Hood. There was a message to it. It was kind of like a debate on how crime should be handled.
Well, yeah, but it didn't it didn't go to
It,
it didn't go into politics, but a good example of this is Christopher Nolan. He did an interview because people were saying that The Dark Knight Rises was anti-communist because of Bane's whole fucking revolution and destroying the establishment. It's like they were saying that Christopher Nolan was right-wing and conservative and that his movie was anti-communist. And Christopher Nolan said, "No, I'm not telling you what to believe politically. All I was saying was that if the revolution is ran by someone like Bane, it's going to be corrupt. If it's ran by someone else, maybe it won't be corrupt." And he was basically saying, my job. He said this in the interview. My job isn't to tell you what to believe politically. It's to entertain you. I wish more artists said that.
Yeah, or at the very least, I wish they would say, it's not my job to beat you over the head with a message. It's my job to entertain you, or at the very least to make you think about something in a different way, but not force you to willingly for you to willingly want to, maybe.
No. Most artists back in the day said that that if they had something political to say, it was subtle because they knew that if they beat you over the head with it, it would not work. The art, it would fail.
Yeah, I
oh
like
yeah,
the
no,
thing.
can you guys hear me?
Oh, I can
Yeah,
hear
I can.
you.
Oh yeah, no, my screen keeps freezing on my side. So, like for example, with Stan Lee, when he came to his writing, if he was passionate about something, for example, there's a Spider-Man comic that talks about the consequences of drugs. Now, Stan Lee
Oh
was
yeah.
big on fighting drug addiction, and so he wrote a Spider-Man story specifically about combating drug addiction.
Uh-huh.
And when he wanted the story published, the comic book authority was like, yeah, no, if you want our seal of approval, you're gonna have to change the story. We don't want anything about drugs. Even if it's against drugs, we just don't want it. And it's like, okay, fine. I'm not gonna have your seal of approval on the book, and I'm still gonna sell it, which he did. Now that's the thing. It's like even with that story, it's like yes, he's against drugs, everything. But the thing is with Stan Lee, for example, he knew how to tell a story. So even if he was pushing a particular message, he'd manage to tell it well. And that's the thing. It's not that we need less political stories and more apolitical. The thing is, at the end of the day, is we need um
Oh, this is
masterful.
Cat, by the way,
Yeah.
I'm not speaking objectively. That's more of a bias since I'm apolitical. I want more apolitical stories for the modern day.
Oh yeah, no. Oh yeah, no. That's the thing. It's like even if you, for example, even if you add a story that was apolitical, the thing is at the end of the day is that some like one group or another is gonna take your story and resonate with it. For example, Ubisoft made music for what game was it? Was it Far Cry 5 or Far Cry 6? When it was basically set in America. I can't remember
Oh, you
the
know
one with
what?
the cult.
You know what
Yeah,
got
it was
Michael Jordan. He said Republicans buy sneakers too. And I remember back then. Well, I wasn't alive, but I heard people were angry at him for saying that.
Yeah, when the NFL was worth a damn.
Oh, you know what? Here's two things Stan Lee said. One thing was that Stan Lee said that he tries to get social issues into comics, but either A, it has to be in the background, or B, it has to be underlaying a plot, meaning that it can't be in your face. He knows that beating you over the head with political views will ruin the work.
My favorite one was he supposedly said he was asked about physical copies or digital. He said, "I look at it like I do boobs. I'd rather have them in my hand."
He
Or he
also
said
said
some.
that Marvel. He also says that Marvel represents the diversity of opinion. Means that no matter what you believe socially, politically, religiously, whatever, you're welcome in Marvel. Well, you used to be when he was around. Now, now only a
Oh yeah,
certain type of
now, I
person is
wouldn't go
welcome
there
in
if you paid
Marvel.
me to. Like, you could pay me to visit that place. I would give
Yeah.
you your money back probably. Either that or try to
Wow.
fleece you.
Honestly, though, what I prefer is old school DC because old school DC, they were the real apolitical guys. Like, I'm not saying they never had a comic that touched on political stuff back then, but the majority of the comics they made were just adventure tales with some morals or philosophy in there. There was no
Yeah, they
politics in
had
DC comics, I'd say, until the 70s with Green Arrow and Green Lantern. Until then, they weren't really strongly political based at all.
yeah, they used to be objective. Now, well, somewhat objective, I guess I should say.
I've heard some
But
people accuse the creators of Batman and Superman for being conservatives because those early comics are not they're not PC enough.
well, great. I mean, Superman fought for a liberal social agenda, and Batman is basically a plagiarized version of the Shadow, albeit one that became his own original thing eventually. But I don't see it.
Honestly, I wouldn't say there's no real message. I would say with Superman because in the early comics, it's like on one hand he gets irritated with the government and the police because he could see things that he could find out and see things that they can't. But on the other hand, he's willing to work with them and he's willing to stress the importance of their existence. So if you ask me, Superman would be, I'd say he'd be somewhere in the centrist liberal range, somewhere around there.
So yeah, I take these people about as seriously as I take Ayn Rand's critics seriously, which is to say, not that much. Like, I cannot
Right.
take them seriously. I can't even respect them. Like, it's pretty
Honestly,
rare.
the biggest oxymoron is that Steve Ditko created Doctor Strange, yet he's not a complex guy, but Doctor Strange is a complex character. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah, he also
But
made the
here's the
question.
no,
Oh,
you can finish.
Oh no, that was it. He just made the question. Who? Funny enough, I can't remember if Ayn Rand said this, but maybe you can confirm this or not. Did Ayn Rand ever bring up Aristotle saying "thing A is A"?
oh.
Oh yes, she did.
Actually,
The question,
I heard the question is a kid-friendly version of Mr. A. Like DC could not have Mr. A in their comics line because he was too mature. So Steve Ditko made the
here's
question.
the funny thing, Kat. For an industry that seems to loathe objectivism, they used that line in Justice League Unlimited. Like, the question used it when he confronted Lex Luthor. He said, "Thing A is A." So in every universe, Lex Luthor is still Lex Luthor.
Actually, I will say this: the reason why I love Justice League Unlimited is because they were neutral. You had Green Arrow going spouting on about his liberal beliefs, so why not have the question spout off his conservative beliefs? It's fair game.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh
But I
yeah, no,
like.
that
I
was the
was
thing because I remember there was a comic run. I can't remember if it was Marvel or DC, but they basically showcased like, okay, these heroes are conservative, these heroes are Democrats. Like that's what they done. It's like that's why it's like everyone is welcome. I think it was Marvel, if I'm not mistaken. They were like,
I
yeah,
heard that I heard DC did a comic like that and it got a lot of flack.
Yeah, Marvel, they're more known for, like, I remember this documentary on comics. They said that Marvel embraced more Maverick stuff than DC did. I forget what they said DC would embrace, but Marvel is more Maverick. So that sounds more like something they would do, I think. I'm not entirely sure, but I'd bet my money on Marvel probably.
I mean, DC. Thing about DC is that you could argue that a lot of the people working on DC had more traditional conservative values, but the majority of the comics weren't political in any sense. Like like you could find morals and philosophy, but you couldn't specifically find politics, and that's because DC was they wanted everyone as a customer, so they didn't risk that. But I'd say around when Denny O'Neil, when he made Green Arrow and Green Lantern, that run, that's when DC started to embrace politics more because it talked about a lot of social topics more.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah,
like
no.
Yeah.
yeah,
But what I love about Denny O'Neil is that he doesn't let politics get in the way of the quality of his writing. And
yeah.
I
He was
miss
cool.
that.
Yeah, but to borrow from Razorfist, he still was a die in the dog shit Democrat. But hey, at least he wasn't a
Wow.
dickhead.
Dude, I'm a fan of all sorts of artists. Look, I'm a big Alan Moore fan. The dude's like an anarchist communist.
Oh yeah, I don't like Alan Moore either, but I kind of respect him for the stuff he's made. But creatively, I respect him. But as a human being, I'm not gonna say I wouldn't be tempted to bitch slap him if I met him in real life.
No,
The,
I
the,
love
the
how
thing,
nuanced the guy is.
yeah, no, he is nuanced. Like my issue with artists now, especially nowadays, is that they don't know how to keep they don't know how to keep the politics out of their art, and they also don't know how to be consistent about
Yeah,
their politics. Because, for example, there's this lewd artist that I used to follow, and he used to retweet a lot of things that I disagreed with. And the thing is, I didn't have an issue with him retweeting the stuff that he did. My problem was like, you don't think for yourself. You just follow in the crowd when it comes to the opinions you have. Because I'm like, if you thought for yourself, you probably would see why there's an issue with this position, but you don't think for yourself. And there's also another lewd artist that I follow, and he's like, "Oh, I can't understand why Genshin Impact is so white." So here's my thing: if you feel like Genshin Impact is too white for your liking, why don't you stop making art that takes inspiration from that game? Why don't you go and get inspiration from other IPs that are more to your standards?
Yeah, like actually another one that comes to mind is probably Michael Moorcock. Like politically, he would probably hate my guts, but creatively, I kind of have to tip my hat to him. Sorry if I changed the subject there, but yeah, like it is weird. Like we've had artists and creators in the past who had differences of opinions, but they weren't crazy about it.
what I love
Now,
about back then is that you had all sorts of artists. They had a variety of views, but they worked with each other. What happened to that?
yeah,
Uh,
like look at
uh,
Stanley and Ditko.
Identity politics happen. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. Because you have Stan Lee, who I'm pretty sure I don't we don't have official confirmation, but I'm pretty sure he was a hippie for his time. You have Steve Ditko, an objectivist. Jack Kirby said he was apolitical when he was working on comics, but he later went to become a Democrat because that's the environment he grew up in. These are three completely different types of people. Like, at least for the most part, Jack Kirby and Stanley are closer to each other, but these three are different, yet they worked with each other and they created Marvel. So that's why I say, what happened? Like, I don't get it.
Identity politics, as Kat said, like that's the worst thing about identity politics. It like we were getting to a point where a lot of issues were no longer issues. Like race, at least in America, as far as I know, seemed to be dying out. That tension, it seemed to be dying out. And then I don't know, sometime after Obama came in, someone went up to that bridge of race relations and burned it to the ground and then pissed on the ashes.
Well,
The thing is, it started when I think the whole identity politics thing started with Occupy Wall Street, because a lot of people from different racial
backgrounds.
demographics,
Yeah.
yeah, no, like anything like race, religion, sexual orientation,
I like the way
politics,
you say
all of
race. That's funny.
race. Yeah, no, like people from from such diverse backgrounds came together ready to oppose the banks. And if you go look on Reddit and you actually speak from people who were there and you ask them what happened, and they will say to you identity politics. They literally say to you that is what killed the movement, because you'd have white men there in the protest. And then you'd have black people say, "Oh, but you're white men, you don't deserve anything." And then you'd have the gays also say something. The thing is, I'm not sure if that happened naturally or if it was the corporations
I
interfering.
believe it was. No offense, Kat. I believe it was manufactured because I did some research. When I was in high school. Yeah, when I was in high school, I was apolitical, but there were all sorts of people. I'm still apolitical, but back then there are all sorts of people in my high school telling me how great communism is, and how great Karl Marx is, and that I need to listen to what they're saying. And I was a nice guy, so I bite. I actually researched communism, and I read a lot of books based on it. Over time, especially my sophomore year, and I found out that when that they said, okay, this type of communism isn't working. Now we should probably strive for the social side of things. Maybe we should try to grab people socially. That's how we'll make them communists. And that was one of the last plans they had before communism just, I think, fell apart for a while.
Yeah, no, the one issue with communism is that in theory it sounds like an amazing system. The problem is that economic system, but it's more political system than anything else. It doesn't account for human greed. And one of the things it proposes is what leads to the problem, because in Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto, and I'm sure you can confirm this for me, Dan, is he talks about how after the revolution is achieved, people who formed the initial base for the revolution must go on and become the dictatorship of the proletariat.
Actually, you know what, Kat? If you read The Jewish Question, that's another, I think, communist book by Karl Marx. He talks about how he believes individuality is a sin, is a crime, simply because he believes individuality is a corrupt or illusional, false version of freedom, where people are selfish and they don't care about their fellow man. So in his mind, the only true freedom that exists is a collective freedom, where you're responsible for what, say, you live in a certain area, you're responsible for what your neighbors do, they're responsible for what you do. If you go to a store and you buy something, you're responsible for what the store owner does with the store, and they're responsible for you, the customer, and what you buy. So he has this weird idea that individualism itself is basically a lie, and that true freedom is when everyone is just so interconnected with each other that they can't make a decision without addressing someone else.
And that's why communist systems often fail, because there's a YouTuber I watch, he calls himself Romanian TV. He also has another YouTube channel called Lack of Entertainment, and also V live streams. He lived for a short time under communism in Romania. And the thing is that there's a lot of videos he often makes where he talks about like what life was under communism. So, for example, if you lived under communism and you showed any sign of individuality, the secret police would take you from the street. They would then correct your appearance if it was a minor thing, if it was major re-education you go to. But if it was a minor thing, like your hair was maybe too long, they'd cut your hair, send you back into the street. They change your clothes, send you back into the street. And another thing was this, is that, so for example, everyone knows this. When you live under communism, the people know the government is lying to them. The government knows that the people know that they're lying to them. But the thing is, everyone continues to lie. So what happened was, if you challenge the lie, because what happened with the Romanian communist regime is that the communist leader's wife, she didn't finish primary school. She was like a South African president, didn't finish primary school. And so what she said to her husband was, oh, let the universities give me degrees to say I have a master's, I have a this, I have a that. And so if you as a person on the street said, oh no, but she didn't finish, I went to school with her, she didn't finish primary school. If you said that, people would ostracize you because you're not believing the lie. And that's the issue with communism, and that's the problem with what Karl Marx is suggesting, is that you now, if you do not follow the lie, if you do not follow what everyone else is following, you will then be so ostracized to the point that either you are forced to conform and be a part of the charade, or you're going to have people come and take you away because you don't want to listen. And that's the issue at the end of the day. But the thing is, we're talking about Karl Marx. The man came from a wealthy family who constantly got criticized by his mother and father, being told he's lazy. He wanted to write a book about, he wanted to write a book about the evils of capitalism, but he couldn't even get capital for himself. That is what his own mother said. That is what his. Huh?
I was just gonna ask, could would objectivism be like
So that's what he's
communism?
like. Oh, say that again. I didn't quite catch what you said.
I was saying, could objectivism be seen as a reaction to communism? Like it's like you have Ayn Rand here. She's seen how bad communism is. Could this be her reacting to it in like a philosophical manner, like saying this is philosophically why I object to communism, or this is her philosophically resisting it, or just saying "f you" to it, basically?
Oh no, absolutely. Because the thing is, what you also need to understand is that Anne Rand had, I don't know if would it be a radio show or talk show, but she had a show that aired every Friday where she spoke out against communism. She was promoting capitalism. She even used to say the weakness of conservatives is that they don't make a strong case when it comes to their positions. And she was like, conservatives should abandon religious mysticism and rather focus on the free market. And that's one thing. There's never been a time, even under Trump and even Ron DeSantis and all of them, there's not been a single conservative that truly talks about the free market. Not a single conservative. And she said if conservatives talked about the free market, they would win in a landslide. And here's the thing right now. Conservatives right now could be get a landslide with the GOP if they spoke about the appropriate issues, but they don't. The actual issues is the economy and education and the border and the energy crisis. Those are the four things. But the thing is, you have conservatives talking about shit that doesn't matter. It's like how I always say: if you ever want to see someone snatch the feet from the jaws of victory, just find a conservative. Just find a conservative, and you'll see it happen.
Yeah, like Matt Walsh.
Yeah, no, with Matt Walsh, for example, a lot of people are like, oh no, he's just joking. I'm like, no, he's not joking. This is the man who says as an adult you shouldn't watch cartoons. So why is he gonna suddenly have a different opinion when it comes to anime? Like, yes, he could be sarcastic, he could have been joking, but that's the thing. It's like
Honestly,
that is his.
I respect his honesty. He was like, I don't have any argument against this. It's just my personal opinion. That was funny.
Yeah, no, like that's my thing. But my main issue at the end of the day is that the fact that he said, "Oh, it's satanic." The thing is, I can genuinely believe he thinks it's satanic because it's like we're talking about the same guy who's like, "Oh, if you're an adult, you shouldn't be watching cartoons." It's like, my guy, you are literally alienating a significant base from your supporters, because this is the one thing. Trump lost a lot of supporters when there was a mass shooting, and he said, "Oh no, these violent video games." He lost a lot of people. People like geeks and gamers. At the time, they were like, "Yeah, no, we don't support Trump anymore." And the reason, and this is the thing at the end of the day, a lot of politicians need to realize this, is that when it comes to certain issues, if you have the wrong opinion, you are going to lose people. So, for example, with me, like when it comes to Ron DeSantis, I love the guy, love his politics, love that he is concerned about the people. But my problem is the fact that he supports red flag laws. It's like, my guy, the opposition is using red flag laws to actively disarm American citizens, and you're like, yeah, no, I agree with red flag laws. It's like, listen, even if you personally agree, can you see there's a problem and maybe not implement them in your state?
Yeah, and this is kind of why it kind of sucks because I tend to be middle center right usually, and I'm like, I've always been on the side of people who have losing with dignity down to a fine science.
And what was the who was the other one? Josh Hawley. That was also another Republican uh, politician, and he was like, men need to stop playing video games and watching pornography, and they should rather be concerned about starting getting a wife and starting a family. And it's like, my guy, why do you think men don't want to settle down? Why do you think men
Honestly,
are single?
if you ask me, these types of people, they're the old ass shit ubbies. Like they're what I call the old ass shit ubbies, and they're still around because these people were throwing a fit for Walter White and Jesse Pinkman, two characters from Breaking Bad, getting statues in Albuquerque, New Mexico, because in the show they're basically drug lords. I'm like, you're gonna throw a fit over that? It's like, really? That's a problem.
Change. Yeah, they haven't changed in the slightest.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
that's
Baseball has a good description of them. The SJW Classic.
Yeah, I call them the old SJWs, but because to me SJWs are extremists. They're extreme, like regardless of what they believe or how they feel, in any sense, they're extremists, and that's what the modern SJWs of today are. They're extremists.
Yeah, they hate fun. Like if you are enjoying life or you're happy with your lot in life or you're not depressed and on the verge of finding the barrel of a gun real friendly, they
Wow.
hate it. They want you miserable.
Oh, Nathan,
oh
by the
yeah.
way, you the only person who can make comments to the other people viewing? Is that it?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Are you the only person that can make comments to the people that are viewing, and they can also make comments? Are you the only person here who could do that?
Oh no, we can all
I'm not,
do that.
Oh, okay. I was
yeah,
just wondering.
Yeah, because the thing is, we have chat, so you can actually type in your stuff there.
Oh, okay, got it. I was just wondering.
Yeah, no. But that's the thing. It's that's the main issue for me because I remember it was an old Fox episode, a Fox News episode. So this lady came on and she was talking about men's rights. It was like, men don't initiate majority of divorces. It's actually women, and men don't want to get married because there's no benefit for them. And so you had Tucker Carlson there, like, but as a man, it's my job to get married and have a wife and children, and I should be happy. And these men aren't real men. And it's like, yeah, no, conservatives haven't changed. They've been the same. They've been consistent. The only Republicans that are different are the MAGA Republicans. But the thing is, for me, it's like when I look at MAGA Republicans, that's more your libertarians. They're not actual conservatives. Because, for example, if we look at Trump, Trump was a registered Democrat. He was never a conservative. He was a registered Democrat.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, I guess I could see.
yeah, he is. I think Sticks X and Hammer described him as being like he's a Democrat left over from when the Democrats were sane, essentially.
I never get when a modern SJW, like, they'll look at you or me, Nathan. They're like, they'll look at us and they're like, okay, you guys are just like angry conservatives. Like, no, I've never voted in my life for that matter. And honestly, I'm not interested in a political group or side. I just believe this authoritative, pretentious bullshit that's harming everything needs to stop. I don't care what you believe in any way, even politically, if you're at least a cool person. But they don't get it, sadly enough.
Yeah, that is the sad thing. Is like they remind me of Disney in a way. Like Disney makes all these bad decisions that alienates people, and then they're wondering why no one's buying their shit, and then they double and triple down harder than Purple Aki,
What
and
I
then they're
found,
like, why? And then they're like, why is no one buying our shit? And I'm
yeah,
like, motherfucker, you pissed them off nonstop. What do you think would happen? Like, even Anakin wasn't this tone deaf.
honestly, you know what? I always say this. You guys could disagree with me, but for me, Anakin in Revenge of the Sith, when he turns to the dark side, he's the living embodiment of an SJW. It's basically like he turns to the dark side. He does everything that Palpatine tells him to do, and when Obi-Wan tries to reason with him, he's like, "If you're not with me, then you're my enemy." I'm like, "What the
Yeah,
fuck?"
he went
This is
full
insane.
He went full Bush, basically. He went full George W. Bush.
Yeah,
Oh
I
no,
never
but
asked to
but
go
that's
back.
absolutely true. But the thing is, you're absolutely right about that. Like Anakin in that particular Star Wars film is exactly what SJWs are. Because let's look at the example of J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling is as left leaning as Nancy Pelosi's left it. That is how left J.K. Rowling is. She is for open borders. She's for authoritarian government. She's for social welfare to the point where people are taxed to the day they die. She's all for that. And even at some point, she was also for transgenderism, but she changed her opinion on that one thing, on that single thing. And now look at her. Not a single SJW wants anything to do with her.
Yep. Actually, no, I take it back. No, the Sith and the Jedi were not this tone deaf. That's what I should have said.
No, honestly, I've told you this before, Kat. It's like I said, it's only how far left you can go. When you hit that limit, then they hate you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
they
but
want you to be.
No, like
No,
I
you
think
can.
Stan Lee. Okay, Stan Lee said this in his later years. When he was asked by a woke interviewer, he was asked, "Do you think when the fans are angry that these changes are being made that they're racist?" He was like, "No, I don't think they're racist." He said, "I just think they don't like the changes. Like they got angry over the fact that in the Spider-Man show, Spider-Man had a different haircut. They're not racist." And he kept doing stuff like this, and people were, and all out of nowhere, out of the blue, people were saying bad things about Stan Lee on the internet. I'm like, seriously.
Like, again, I say this all the time. Wokesters, leftists, and SJWs, they're the most unobjective, unprincipled, sociopathic scum under the sun. But yeah, like, they want you to be more, like, they want you to be more leaning one way than a one-legged unicyclist until you break. Like, it's kind of disgusting, really.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they need that because this is the thing at the end of the day. These people cannot debate their positions. Because look at it, for example, like every single Fox News host, because they have multiple segments, every single one of them say, we invite Democrats to come onto the show. And sometimes they'll even show, it's like, yeah, no, yeah, we sent the email requesting they should come and they don't want to. Like, even look, for example, with Ben Shapiro and my big juicy booty horse face. Ben Shapiro. No, AOC.
Oh, AOC. I think Ann Coulter, because she's the one who usually gets called a horse face.
Okay, we'll call AOC donkey face. The donkey with the big juicy booty. Yeah, and so like he invited her on to his show to have a debate, and she's like, "I will not debate because a man demanded I should come onto his show." And it's like, no, lady, he asked you, and you could have had the debate with him. Because this is my thing. Why don't you debate? Why don't you show your position? But this is the thing. It's like the moment you debate them, they have no position. They have no leg to stand on. A whole academic professor, she said this: I will not debate because debating is a white supremacist patriarchal system that devalues the ideas of others. And it's like, no, lady, you don't have a strong argument to give us. So that's why you don't want to debate anyone.
I'm so sick of that shit. I'm tired of, whenever people just don't want to do something. Like, it's white supremacist. It's right wing. It's like, just say you don't want to do it. Just say you're not interested.
Like, how hard is it to say I don't want to do it? Like, it's not that hard. You don't have to make some excuse up. I mean, granted, I sometimes do this too, but I'm assuming I do. But still, it's not that hard. Just say it doesn't interest me. I have better things to do. Or I don't think it's worth my time.
Like, I'll tell you this, Nathan, and I'll say this because I feel like these people, they need their ego, they need their pride. But when I was a kid in school, when kids had debates with teachers or themselves, and they didn't have an argument, they're like, okay, I don't agree with you. I don't have an argument, but I just don't agree with you. Maybe I'll come up with a reason why later, but I just don't have an argument. But these people, and regardless of where they lean politically, they are so stubborn to do that shit. They don't want to. It's like,
I know they're more stubborn than a Democrat or a donkey.
Yeah, like they don't want to lament. They like I shouldn't say limit. They don't want to give in. Like I think a good example, I believe, is you had those riots, I believe, where those guys were saying Jews will not replace us. I think those were like I don't know. People say they're Nazis, I guess neo-Nazis, maybe, whatever. It's like you had I think Michael Knowles, he had like he's had one weird political debate or something. And they were talking about that. And he would not when it came to him saying there are good people on both sides, every single time every single time his opponent or people in the audience were yelling at him that they were evil and they were Nazis, he couldn't say anything. He kept trying to I don't know. He kept trying to wiggle around at that accusation, but I noticed that he couldn't say anything when they kept telling him that. I'm like, dude, just say you don't agree with what they're saying and you don't have an argument. Like, what's wrong with that? And this isn't me being anti or pro his idea or the other side. This is me like, just say that you don't agree and that you don't have an argument for why. But he couldn't do
exactly. It's like, no, you go ahead, Kat.
Yeah, no, the thing is this, is that we've become so concerned about always arguing and always having a position on an issue is that even when we're uneducated and we don't know what we're talking about, we still can be like, here's my opinion. Because the thing is, it's like, no, I must have an opinion and I must challenge people. And that's the one thing with Michael Knowles, Ben Shapiro, and Matt Walsh. Andrew Clavin doesn't do this. Like I've never seen him do it. And that's the problem with them, with those three in particular. It's because they always want to debate, and the thing is, they exactly the same as the SJWs. They always want to have a stance on an issue, and they always want to be like, no, we have the position. It's like, no, you don't always have the right position. The fact that Knowles, I'm not sure if Knowles is a part of this, but the fact that Ben and Matt Walsh are for having the government ban pornography from the internet. It's like, okay, first of all, you guys are inconsistent on the fact that you don't want government interfering in people's private lives. You're already hypocritical on that. You say you're for the free speech. You're hypocritical on that because that's the thing. Pornography is protected under the First Amendment.
Right.
And for me, it's like this. Why do you want it banned? Because for me, I'm like, listen, parents need to be proactive. They are like browsers that you can download that are specifically orientated towards children. I know Microsoft you had this before, and I don't know what it was called, but if you had that browser on like your child's laptop, that browser was curated to only provide child-friendly content if you went online. So for me, like that's what parents do if they're so concerned about their children being exposed to things online. It's like have child proof, no, not child proof. Parent protect that phone as best as you can.
Hey,
So
you know
have
what? I
certain,
agree. I
yeah,
agree with you. I agree with you, Kat. It's like honestly, if parents have an issue with the content their kids are watching, then they should play a role instead of trying to attack the thing. Like they'll jump on the movie for being too violent, or they'll jump on the game for being too violent. It's like, no, pay attention to what your kids using, watching. Like,
Yeah, be an
exactly.
actual parent instead of making a scapegoat out of entertainment.
yeah.
Like that's the thing, and that's why when I look at conservatives, I'm like, yeah, no. If Ayn Rand was still alive, she'd still be like, conservatives haven't changed. They still the same. They're useless as ever. Because that's the thing. It's you. As much as you'll have Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro say, parents need to do something. Parents need to go to the schools and take action and stop the indoctrination. But you won't see them say parents should make sure about what their children are doing online. Parents should be involved in what the content their children consume. You'll never hear them say that. And I
Well,
think it's
look,
like I yeah.
if I said, look, if someone can admit that their views are a bit more nuanced when it comes to these kinds of topics, Kat, I could say, okay, they're nuanced, they're not hypocritical. But when people don't want to at least come out clean or admit that their opinions aren't as straightforward as they make them out to be, they're hypocrites because there's no consistency at all.
Yeah, no. And that's the big problem. And for me it's like if Matt Walsh came out and said, you know what, I am for big government on things I approve of, I'll be like, okay, fine. I respect your honesty. I might completely disrespect your opinions, but you know what? I respect your honesty. And that's
Yeah.
my thing. It's like, be honest. Like, if you want government overreach for things you approve of, okay, awesome, great. But don't act like, oh, I'm all for freedom and liberty. I want small government. But then in the same breath, you'll be like, but big government is so beautiful.
Hey, you know what? That's one of the, like, I'll say one example of why I really love Jordan Peterson was he had this interview about the controversy of a gay, like, this restaurant, I don't know, this bakery that was owned by a
It's a
Christian.
bakery.
Yeah, and he refused to actually make a cake for the gay couple because of his religious beliefs. And in the debate, Jordan Peterson's like, well, no, he should have that right. That's his store. And the interviewer said, well, what about segregation? They had a say on whether certain groups of people could come into these stores and such. And it's like you said that you're not for that. And Jordan Peterson thought for a moment, was like, you know what? Actually, that's actually a good point. Like he didn't try to fight the guy on that. He was like, you know what? You got me there. I'm like, yes, that's honesty. What happened to that?
Oh yeah, but here's also the other thing. It's like that's one thing. It's like I say, Jordan Peterson will go back and reevaluate his positions. The one interesting thing about that old story about the bakery, this is that gay couple that he denied to make the wedding cake for, he actually regularly served them. They would come to his bakery and buy things,
Oh
and the
wow.
only time he was like, "No, I don't want to serve you," is when they wanted the wedding cake. So this guy wasn't homophobic. He knew you were a gay couple and he still served you. And then when you asked for the wedding cake, he was like, yeah, no, I'm sorry. I draw the line here. And my thing was, this, why didn't you go to another bakery? That's money he's
Yeah, I
losing
said the
out on.
same thing. Well, why not go to another bakery? I get the segregation argument, but it's like I don't think I don't think it's as bad because if I was Jordan Peterson, I would have said, well, in segregation, you couldn't even go into the fucking place. They wouldn't allow you to. But in this case, these people could freely go in, order things. It's like the situation is not completely the same. So I don't
Oh, yeah,
get,
no.
yeah,
I think Anne Rand talked about racism, and she was like, racism is the lowest form of what was it, intellectualism or something like that, because she basically said racism was where you're not aware of how people are, you're not knowledgeable on different cultures and that kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah, no, I completely agree. I wish he was alive long enough for us to reach the whole Middle Easterners problem and see what she would have said about that. But this is the thing, it's like she would say, it's like, listen, if this business is racist to you, the best thing you can do is take your business elsewhere. Don't make a fuss about it. Just go somewhere else. And if people ask you, oh, why did you come here? It's like, oh, no, you know what? That other shop, the owner's racist to me. I decided, you know what? I'll go where my money is appreciated. And that's what she would always say. It's like, listen, if you're working at the company and they don't want to pay you what you're worth, go to another company that's going to appreciate you. That was the thing that she always emphasized is choice. It's like you always have a choice, and that's, I think, is one of the major reasons that she was always so disliked, is the fact that she offered people choice. It's like, yeah, no, listen, make a
yeah.
choice, choose. Like, I'm not going to tell you what you must do, just
Actually,
choose.
yeah, yeah, and individuality. Actually, I had a teacher in the second grade who my family kept telling me was racist and that she was biased towards race. I was like, well, okay, yeah, you know what? Maybe you're right about that, but I learned things from her, and she was nice to me. It was like they were mad. It was like, well, she's racist. Like, well, okay, yeah, but she didn't show it to me, and she taught me things. So even if she was racist, I'm not gonna hate her.
Yeah, no,
So
like the thing is,
yeah,
it's like, what was it? My best friend. So her sister is engaged. I don't know if she's married now, but back in 2019, me and my friend, we went to Gold Reef City for a birthday. So it's like a theme park, and so
yeah.
I had to sleep over at her place, and she was so worried that her sister's fiance was gonna be ugly towards me because he was racist and homophobic. And the thing is, me and this guy got along so fucking well.
Oh
That
wow,
is the thing.
really?
It's like, yeah, no, we got along so fucking well. And like, obviously, like, I think years later, she was like, she made the suggestion that, you know what, he was behaving that way for his girlfriend. I'm like, okay, then why, if that's the case, then why were me and him at some point standing by ourselves talking without issue while you were talking to your sister? If he was putting on, he wasn't gonna be comfortable standing with me alone, you know?
Oh my god, I'm gonna sound like a cheesy fucking sitcom, but cat. Maybe you knew him better in those few moments than the people around him knew him at all.
Yeah, no, like that's the thing, and this is the one thing, and I don't know why it happens, but people seem to like me a lot, especially now that I have an internship and I'm working at a corporation. I hate it so much because the company is ESG compliant. Ooh, oh my God, I had to sit in on that meeting talking about ESG things, and I'm just there like, yo, I don't want to be I don't want to work at this company. Uh, Like the moment I heard it was ESG, I'm like, yo, can I please get fired? I'm ready to be fired right now. I'll be
Oh
I'll be
really?
unemployed.
Wow.
Yeah, no, obviously, but I say that to myself because I'm just like, yo, I don't want to be working for this company anymore. Because the whole thing for me with ESGs is the reason why everything's happened. Because the thing is, I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned this to you guys. So ESG is a funding scheme proposed by banks in order to force companies to be woke. Because if you meet the three categories, one or more, so E stands for environmentalism, G stands for governance, so that's your corporate structure, and A stands for social, so that's politics. So the reason why companies like Warner Bros. And Disney and everyone else is able to keep on pumping out so much woke content is because they're getting money from the banks for it, from BlackRock and everyone else. This is why, for example, in Florida, DeSantis basically said, "Hey, listen, we don't want ESG in the state anymore. Please go somewhere else." And I think there is also another state in the US that, okay, yeah, if you have any relationships with any business that or bank that works with ESG, you're not eligible for funding from the state.
Huh. Wow, that just sounds would asinine be fitting?
Oh yeah, no, it absolutely is because this is also the reason why Marvel and DC went woke. It's because they get paid by the banks. The banks give them money. Because the thing is, it doesn't matter if your product fails, so long as you meet those three, so long as you comply with ESG, you will get money regardless. Like your project could have bombed so badly, made nothing at the box office. You will still get money from ESG. That's why even for example, what was it? After Edge Runners came out, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, CD Projekt Red came out with a whole video talking about how they are ESG compliant. I'm like, I knew this company was gonna get fucked over by themselves. I was like, I knew it. I am vindicated. I was right. I was so happy.
So, what you're saying is, fuck everyone, I was right, basically.
Yeah, no, because the one thing that pisses me off, and this is a whole completely different tangent right now. The one thing that honestly annoys me so much when it comes to gamers is that I don't know if we suffer from like uh Alzheimer's or I don't know what, but if EA Games or Ubisoft or Bethesda, or not Bethesda, because although Bethesda has had a history of releasing buggy products, people still buy the next Bethesda product, expecting it not to be a buggy mess. So Bethesda is basically the CD Projekt Red of the West or America, because CD Projekt, every single game they have ever released that they have ever made has been a buggy mess on launch. So I don't know why people were surprised when Cyberpunk 2077 was a buggy mess. This is a standard for the studio. So I wasn't surprised when I saw it was buggy. I'm like, oh, at least they're keeping consistent with how their business runs. But my thing is, if EA or anyone else released Cyberpunk, no one was going to give that game the time of day. But because it's CD Projekt Red for some reason, it's like, oh, we'll give the game the time of day. And I saw people like Bolvark and Loping defending Cyberpunk, and I'm like, wow, guys, I love the consumerism you're showing.
Yeah, like I was kind of guilty of this too, but after talking to you, I'm just like, yeah, they have adopted what some people would call the Lucas method of we'll fix it in post. Like
Yeah,
all
no,
the
absolutely.
it's annoying.
And the thing for me, what frustrates me the most is that Cyberpunk Edge Runners showcased to us what Cyberpunk 2077 could have been. And I'm like, that's the thing. It's like that's what the game should have been. But the problem is, at the end of the day, is that you have a company that always releases buggy games. So already now you need to know that fundamentally the design principles that go into their games are going to lead to crappy games. That's why, for example, when it comes to The Witcher, the only thing that's fun about that game is the story. It's not the combat. It's not traveling from location to location. It's the story. That's the only good thing about the game. There's nothing else that's interesting about the game. It's the story, the way they can tell how the stories work for side quests and the main quest. That's the only thing that works for The Witcher. Because here's my thing. I'm not sure if you guys ever played a game called Dragon's Dogma. But now in Dragon's Dogma, for example, if you are fighting an enemy that's larger than you can climb the enemy. There were multiple times in The Witcher, because I'm watching someone play through the series, Gamer Quest, that's a YouTube channel. And there are multiple enemies that are bigger than Geralt, but for some reason he can't climb them. And there's no combo system. Like there's like you do the same attacks over and over and over. It's not like, oh, you can level up your attacks and do something different. It's like there really isn't anything when it comes to the gameplay aspect of The Witcher to sing praise about. There's only the story, and this is the thing that frustrates me so much when it comes to gamers. But it explains why ESG was so successful when it came to video games, because gamers don't know what they want. It's because you can give gamers a quality product and stuff, and they won't purchase the product or play it unless it was well marketed. Because I know at GDC conference, so this was the game development conference in 2007, a guy spoke about, oh, the success of your game doesn't depend on the quality, it depends on how well marketed your game was. And the thing is, we've seen this proven time and time again. Because let's look at it, for example, Devil May Cry and Bayonetta, very two niche games, but they're amazing games. But the thing is, why weren't they critical successes? Because they weren't marketed well enough. But then the thing is, games like GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption, which aren't such amazing games, which have a lot of problems, they were critical successes. Why? Because they were marketed well enough.
What was Red Dead Redemption 2's problem, aside from the online thing? The criticism of that I get.
Yeah, no, the thing is, it's like the main issue for me with Red Dead Redemption 2 is that it feels too much like a movie instead of a game. That's the problem for me. Is that it felt too much like a movie. And that's the one thing you don't want your game to feel like. You want your
That's
game to
growing.
feel like a game.
That's a growing criticism I've heard from most entertainment. That the comics, the cartoons, the games, they feel like more like movies. I've heard people say that.
Yeah, no, this is the thing. It's like what you need to understand. And I should actually send you this article because I wrote it like years back now already. But I wrote about I done an in-depth dive into Gamergate. And I explained that Gamergate wasn't just a consequence of someone like Zoe Quinn. Zoe Quinn was basically just the straw that broke the camel's back. That's what she was. But there was a lot of other festering problems within the gaming industry because you had someone like Ian Miles Strong. So he was a part of a group of gaming journalists that wanted to see video games become like movies. And so him and those gaming journalists made efforts to steer game developers towards making video games like movies. That's why we kept on seeing over time video games becoming more and more like movies because there were people in the industry basically promoting this. And someone like Zoe Quinn and everything she caused, along with Anita Sarkeesian, basically gave a lot of companies and a lot of developers the leeway they needed in order to now make their games more like movies because now they could use the protection of, oh, we want to be respectful, inclusive, and accepting, and so now our games are like movies because that's essentially what it is at the end of the day. And that's why people complain about it so much because, for example, someone like Kojima doesn't want to make video games. He wants to make movies. That's why,
Yeah,
for example, Metal Gear 5, if you look at that game, it feels like a fucking movie. And it's the same with Dead Stranding. Why does
yeah.
it feel like a movie? Yeah.
Short Shadow Taku, he made a video where he says that he believes they're grabbing a bunch of people who want to make screenplays and make movies, and they're throwing them in. They're basically throwing them into the comic side of entertainment, or the game side, or the book side. And these people, they don't really get to do what they want. So for as a result, their stuff comes off more like movies because they're putting what they want into the product that they're a part of.
Oh no, absolutely. Because the thing is, another thing that happened in Hollywood, there was a time where the writers for all of the shows and all of the movies, they wanted more money. And what happened was Hollywood was like, you think we need you guys? We can write ourselves. And so
These dumbasses.
they fired all of the writers, and then they've been writing themselves. That's why you'll see so often it's like, oh, Patty Jenkins wrote and directed Wonder Woman instead of like, oh, someone else wrote the script and someone else directed. Now, listen, in certain cases, if you Steven Spielberg, if you Quentin Tarantino, like, and George Lucas, if you are talented in both departments, yeah, no, you can direct and you can write the script. But the thing is, those are exceptions. They are not the rule. The
Well,
rule
they
for
are
most
artists.
directors, yeah.
You know?
The thing is that the rule for like most directors is that most directors can just direct. They can't write. And the rule for most script writers is that they can't direct. They can just write. And so now, if you haven't someone direct and write, obviously it's gonna turn out to be shit. And the thing is also, what another thing when it comes to the writing that they do in Hollywood is everything is done by committee. You must now all agree on what's being written. That's why, for example, the writing is so shitty because it's like you have 60 people deciding on how one episode for a show needs to be written. It's like
Damn it.
you don't need 60 people to come up with one episode. It's like two people can do that. One person can do that.
What you said about Red Dead Redemption 2 being more like a movie, I actually have a theory as to why that is. I've been hearing from YouTube commenters, they've been saying like people who wanted to go into movies, they can't do that. So they're being forced to go into video games. So you have these piss heads who couldn't make movies, so they had to sell for video games. Now maybe that led to them trying to make video games more movie-like.
Yeah.
And maybe this
Oh
also
no, absolutely.
this also might be an explanation. Again, I swear English is my first language. That we're seeing such subversiveness and circumvention of stuff we love in video games. Like
I don't mind some video games trying to be like movies or some comics trying to be like. I don't mind that concept. What I mind is that that's all they're doing, and that's a problem.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
it's the oversaturation. Because, for example, what is it? They are video games. At how can I say they were stylized to feel like a movie. So, for example, in Bayonetta, you'd have cutscenes where you wouldn't have like actual like 3D animation going on. You'd basically have like the film strips showcasing what's happening. And it's like, yeah, no, it's like if you utilize it well enough, you can create a certain style for the video game. And that's the thing that what needs to be understood is that you can stylistically make a comic feel like a film. Stylistically, you can make a video game feel like a film. But the thing is, you need to understand what is the core concept of what you're working on. You are working on a comic. It needs to still be a comic. The way you represent it can be completely different, but it still needs to be a comic. And the same with video games. And that's where the issue comes in at the end of the day, is because a lot of developers nowadays, they don't know what a video game is. Like, for example, Neil Druckmann, he's like, oh no, we don't think of our video games as fun. It's like, no, my guy, video games are meant to be fun. The fact that your game isn't fun already is telling me that you failed at making a decent game. And the thing is, when you watch people play through the game, it's like, yeah, no, you failed to make a game, because none of the things make sense. The entire premise for why you have The Last of Us Part 2 doesn't make sense, because that's my thing. Nowhere in that game do you have the option not to kill people. If the game gave you the option of you don't need to kill people, and if you don't kill a single person, and then you find Abby, then you decide not to kill her. It's like, okay, that completely makes sense, because it's like, okay, if you play like this and you just kill the zombies and not a single person, you will then spare Abby. I'd be like, okay, great, I'm completely fine with it. And if you killed people, even if you just killed one person and you came across Abby, you were gonna kill her. I'm like, you know what? I'm completely fine with this, because the thing is, you at least working player choice into the story outcome.
Right.
And,
Actually,
and
I
that's
like
the thing. Yeah.
the games to let you get to decide the scenario. Those are fun.
Yeah, no, that's my thing. Like, my biggest thing is that when it comes to certain games, especially games that are one off, give players the ability to choose what the outcome is going to be. But for example, if it's a game that have multiple entries, then yeah, no, you can't do that. So for example, with like a game like Bayonetta, it doesn't make sense for you to have different endings for the players based on maybe some arbitrary choice. If you're talking about, oh, we are now going to offer additional story content based on how well the player plays, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's fine, because the thing is, it's like, oh, if you play the game really well, you'll know what's going to happen in Bayonetta 2. Like something like that can work. Because I know, for example, what was it like with God of War? God of War they would have like spin-off games that were on the PSP, but these spin-off games would basically inform you about why Kratos in God of War 2 decided to go against the Olympian gods, because in the spin-off games like Chains of Olympus, you find out that Kratos has been serving the gods for 10 years straight. He's done everything he could, and he finds out Persephone wants to destroy the world because she's tired of being under Hades' control. And so she's like, Kratos, if you give up your power, you can be with your daughter forever. And Kratos does that. But then she's like, because you care about your daughter so much, um, the world is now going to be destroyed. And Kratos is then forced now to push away his daughter from him, the daughter he's loved so much. And so it's like, okay, this now contributes to the fact that now Kratos has this growing resentment to the gods, because he was like, hey, you know what? I done all of this for you. Can you take away my memories? And they're like, nah, my guy, we can't take away your memories. We can forgive you though. Like, yeah, we did say we can take away your memories about how you slaughtered your wife and child, but yeah, best we can do is forgiveness. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And then in God,
sorry, what?
Yeah. No, then for example, God of War goes to Sparta. In Goes to Sparta, he finds out his mother's still alive, his brother's still alive. And by the point where he's now lost his mother and brother, because he had to kill his own mother and he saw his brother get murdered, Athena comes down and she's like, my guy, you know what? We are so proud of what you done. We needed you to do this so you could finally become a god. And Kratos is there like, what the fuck? So this was all a test? I had to lose the last of my family for this?
Yeah.
And that's why in God of War 2, why he decides to turn against the Olympian gods.
And for some reason, this sounds like from what little I know of Greek mythology, which I actually know some, that actually feels like realistic though, because the gods in Greek mythology are petty assholes who fuck with people for funsies on a daily or bi-weekly basis at best.
Oh, I know that's the one thing that I often say to people about classic God of War is that all of those games, Chains of Olympus, God of War 1, Ghost of Sparta, God of War 3, and God of War Ascension. The one thing I say, if you play all of those games in chronological order, it feels like a Greek tragedy. And that's the one thing I praise that game on. If you play all of those games in chronological order, it feels like you're playing a Greek tragedy. And then also, like, the combat is fun, and the platforming is great. And that's why for me, it's like when I look at something like the new God of War, I can't enjoy the game because like it doesn't have an identity. God of War, the new one, it feels like every other Western release of a video game. Like there's no unique identity to it. Like what made classic God of War such a standout was that there's a video game that attempted to match the in-depth combo systems of Japanese hack and slash games like Devil May Cry.
Yep. And I would say on some level, I would like to think on some level they succeeded.
Oh, guys.
Oh yeah, and like, yeah.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you guys. The Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special trailer came out, and all I can say is, let's hope that this is not like the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Oh, yeah. Like as much as I love George Lucas and want to defend him, like I think even he hated that special.
Well, to be honest, he actually had no intention of making that. That was mandated by Fox.
Yeah, that thing only got one thing right. It introduced us to Boba Fett. That was
and
it.
We found out Chewbacca got a family. There's that too.
Aside from Boba Fett, I give that thing no points.
Well, considering Chewbacca's life debt to Han, I guess that makes him a deadbeat dad.
I don't know, but like, here's the funny thing though about that. Like, I heard Carrie Fisher, if she wanted to clear a room during parties, she would start playing that. That's how she would clear a room.
No, you know what? Honestly, that will solve a lot of problems. Like a lot of kids who don't see their parents. This is a joke, so I hope no one takes this seriously. But a lot of kids that don't see their parents around are like, "What the hell? You never visited me my whole life." Well, you see, I had this life debt to my best friend, and I couldn't stick around, so I had to take care of that. But now I finally have the time to see you.
Oh boy. Yeah, like if anyone like Chewbacca, he's the only person who could be a deadbeat dad and get away with it because I don't know. I find him more forgivable because I don't know. This is the same guy who faced down a meteor coming his way and just roared at it.
Well, Wookiees are like, aren't they like they're like, I don't want to say commune, but they're like a community where they take care of each other. So I don't think Chewie needs to be around for his family. No offense.
Wait, so they're like hippies?
I don't know. I don't know about hippies, but maybe they take care of each other. They have this community thing going on. I don't know. I don't think there's an economy on Kashyyyk either. I don't know.
Wookiees are like that.
Oh yeah, no, there's no like economy. Everything is like very tribalistic.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah, the Wookiees are the one aliens in Star Wars that creep me out because, like, I remember there was this joke in the Old Republic game where Corso Riggs was like, "I'd watch it, Captain. That thing's as likely to rip your arms off and beat you over the head with them like a drum."
Hey, you know what, Kat? I guess you could say they're communists by default. I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, what the heck, Space Monkey?
Wait, well, what did he say? What? Yeah, I guess. I mean, they were based off. I think I heard George said that he got some inspiration from the Native Americans for Wookiees. I don't know for sure. I'll have to look that up.
I don't see it. I don't see. But here's the thing: I don't see Wookiees screwing each other over constantly for centuries.
No. I mean, the thing is that this is why I respect people that are consistent, Nathan. If the Wookiees are communists, they're consistent, okay? When they're loyal, they're fucking loyal. They're there for whoever they promise a life debt to. You know, Chewie promised a life debt for Han. No matter the canon you follow, he follows until the end.
Yeah, so well, at least within the EU, I like the explanation for why there's that life debt. Like Han actually took pity on him and saved his life from being which I liked. But like the only time I've ever liked Kashyyyk was in Force Unleashed when you go there as Darth Vader and you tear shit up. I love that part of the game. I'm not gonna lie.
I had a friend who did too. He said he wanted a Darth Vader movie. I was like, I don't know about that.
I could kind of see that. It would depend on what you want to do with it.
Nathan, Vader already has 6 films. Does he really need one more?
I don't know, but this stream achieved something. It got its maximum, the highest amount of viewers we've gotten so far is 3. I consider that a high mark for this. But
yeah, man.
But it's fine either way. To those of you who tuned into this, thanks. But yeah, like I would really like a Star Killer movie though, or a third.
Oh, Kat, what were you trying to say?
No. The thing is, I was say with the Darth Vader film, like the one thing that we should realize, and I even realized this, is that some characters aren't made to have their own standalone films. Because the thing is, Darth Vader works well as an antagonist, as this looming presence in the background. Because that's the appeal of him. It's like, oh no, the big bad guy. And so if it's like, oh, he has his own film, you lose that whole like menacing aspect of him that you get from watching him be the antagonist.
Like if you
I think Darth Vader works best like that. Episode. Yeah, I think Darth Vader works best like you remember that game they made a few years ago with
Oh, Nathan, we went back to 0.
Oh well. Yeah. But I can't remember the movie's name. It had that Jedi Padawan who survived Order 66. He saw his master get killed and he's been in hiding. Jedi Fallen Order, I think.
Yeah, Fallen Order.
Use Vader in that, I think, is how you're supposed to use Vader. Like, if he shows up, you are fucked.
Honestly, I will give Star Wars Theory this. He actually successfully made an interesting Star Wars show because you have Star Wars Episode 1.
Like if you were going to do like a movie about Darth Vader, I would say it'd be a short film at best.
Yeah. I can't wait to see him fight Mace Windu because Theory says that's what he wants. Theory said that if Mace Windu survived that fall in Revenge of the Sith, he wants to see Vader hunt him down. And I agree with him. That would be a great one.
I kind of agree. Actually, no, I'd like to see Boba Fett kill Mace Windu just for closure.
I heard someone say they would like it that Mace appeared in Book of Boba Fett. Like he lived for that long, but at that point, Boba just was over it.
Yeah, someone made a meme of that where it shows someone asking, "What's your business with Boba Fett?" He's like, "I'm a friend of the family." Then it shows Boba Fett going, what the fuck? Or there he goes, you've got to be shitting me. You're alive?
Hey, you know what? Disney, like, Kat, you're completely right about some characters don't deserve a show, but or a movie, but honestly, Disney Lucasfilm was so fucking stupid that they were like, let's give that bar in A New Hope its own movie. We're gonna make a whole movie based around that bar. And I'm like, on Tatooine. I'm like, what story are you gonna tell with that? What?
No, the thing is, understand, we have basically Star Wars material where it's like, oh my god, Star Wars, but it's a baking competition. It's like, what the fuck?
Actually, you know
It's
what?
like,
Someone made a meme. They were like Star Wars comics back then showing the Old Republic shit, and Star Wars comics now showing the bakery. Like, wow.
Yeah, I would sooner trust fanfic writers with Star Wars before I trust Disney at this point.
No, like I said,
Yeah, no.
I don't mind bakery shit in Star Wars comics. What I mind is that, one, the comics need to be more about Star Wars related topics, not just about this shit. This shit can be in there. I'm not going to argue with that, but that can't be the only thing.
After what they did to Boba Fett, I'm like, yeah, no. Like, to anyone who sees this, either while we're streaming or after I've finished, if you like the book of Boba Fett, more power to you. But personally, from what I've been hearing and reading what they did, it makes my heart weep.
Nathan, I'm not going to lie to you. I know you're a Boba Fett fan. That show is bad. It is bad.
He's my second favorite Star Wars character, and I'm like,
honestly, I'm disappointed in Jon Favreau because I'm a big Jon Favreau fan, and he wrote every episode of that show. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Why?
Jon Favreau is the thing is, Jon Favreau, his only success, the only time Jon Favreau is able to make a good Star Wars IP is if he can have as many Easter eggs as they can be eggs in IP. That's the only time that he does good work.
Oh, yeah, I had to agree with Space Monkey here. From what little I remember of the MMO of Star Wars, The Old Republic.
I mean, there is Star Wars Rebels. You guys could disagree with me, but I like Rebels. At least it has problems. It does, but it has the heart of Star Wars, in my opinion.
Yeah, my only complaint about the MMO is we didn't get to play as an SIS agent. We could play as an Imperial Intelligence, as a bounty hunter, which was usually my first pick. It's the only storyline I was able to beat.
Yeah.
A Sith warrior, a Sith Inquisitor, a Jedi Knight, a Jedi Consular, a Trooper, or a Smuggler. But we're never allowed to play as an SIS agent, which I would have liked to play. There's a book about one, though. I have that, but I never finished it. But it was a fun game. The best part of it was Malgus, I think, because I think one person said he represents the Sith philosophy best. The only downside is he hasn't broken his chains either. He claims he has, but he hasn't. He's still a slave to the dark side.
Honestly, this is why I say Palpatine's the best Sith. And a lot of Star Wars fans get angry at me for saying this, but I'm like, Palpatine is a Sith by nature because yes, he doesn't follow all the rules of the Sith, but the fact that he's willing to break the very foundational rules of the Sith just for power means he's truly a Sith.
I consider him a Sith at their worst. Like the Sith, I don't know. I have always had this weird, well, not always, but I have had this weird thought for a couple of years. I've thought that the Sith aren't necessarily evil. It's the dark side that's evil. Like, they probably would not be as evil if it wasn't for the dark side. Yeah, I'm aware of Malgus is.
Well, you gotta be.
That's what I loved about the recent trailer.
I think you got to be a bit more because you got the Sith race in the EU, and then you have the Sith practitioners that practice that stuff.
Okay, like look at the dark side, the Sith code. And it's not necessarily bad, I would argue.
Yeah.
Because I like that line where it says, through victory, my chains are broken. The force shall guide me. Now, this sounds to me like a self-actualizing, almost will-to-power Nietzschean BS kind of thing. Now, that's not necessarily evil, but combined with the dark side, yeah, it's pretty bad. And Sidious was a Sith at their worst, in my opinion. Or at least that's what I think. Is like, I would take Malgus, Bane. Hell, I would take Valkyria over Sidious any day because I think I have a shot of defeating them. Sidious, oh no, he's a chess master character. He's like,
well, the interesting thing about Sidious is that a lot of Sith have limits somewhere. They have a limit somewhere. Sidious has no fucking limit. He won't stop. He will not stop till he has everything. And to me, that's why I say he's the best Sith, because he truly embraces what it means to be a Sith. At its worst, at its best, and at its worst. He's Sith incarnate. And ultimately, that's what led to his downfall and the end of the Sith, because, you know, the best of the Sith leads to the end of the Sith, as I like to say.
Yeah, he should have listened to Plagueis. He should have listened to Plagueis.
Well, Plagueis, if you look at the EU, he wanted to bring back the Sith Order, surprisingly enough. And Count Dooku wanted the same thing. They wanted an order of Sith that would lead the galaxy to peace. Like, they had the goal of the Jedi, but their methods were different.
Oh yeah, like Kat, that story I was telling you that I was like working on that led me to like contact you about this. Like, imagine Sidious and Darth Vader put together, like the Machiavellianism of Darth Sidious mixed with like the cold, calm wrath of Darth Vader. That's like how I wanted the character to be, basically.
Oh no, I completely get that. For me, when it comes to the whole idea of the Sith, my thing is, and it's one thing I don't like about some Star Wars fans, is that they're like, there's no nuance to why anyone became a Sith. It's because they just gave into their emotions. It's like, no, there were legitimate issues with the Jedi because they were so passive, and it led to people joining the dark side. For example, you can look at like Revan. Revan only joined the dark side because it's like, oh no, the Jedi don't want to go to war and save the galaxy. We'll go save the galaxy. It's the same with even like Yutora. Is it Yutora Bane, or am I mispronouncing the name? But she's basically a former Jedi that you meet at the Sith Enclave on Korriban, and she tells it's like, oh no, excuse me.
Do you mean Kreia? Is that who you're talking about?
No. She's a Twi'lek.
Yeah.
Yutora. Yeah.
No. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she found herself in slavery. She managed to escape. The Jedi found her, and while she was to be a Jedi, she was like, she wants to go save her people who are slaves. The Jedi were like, no, you can't do that because it's the way of the dark side. You can't want revenge. And then what happened was, it's like, okay, you guys don't want to help me save my people. I'm gonna go join the Sith. Because that's the one thing a lot of people never mention, is that a lot of the people that joined the dark side wasn't because they started off as evil. It's like, if majority of the people who went to the dark side started off as Jedi. Count Dooku started off as a Jedi. Yutora started off as a Jedi. Kreia started off as a Jedi. Revan started off as a Jedi. Darth Vader started off as a Jedi. It's like every single person started off as a Jedi. It's not like, oh, we became Sith outside of the Jedi Order. It's like, no, we started here. There must be a problem here.
No. The interesting thing about the G canon in the EU is that in the EU, it just started off as Jedi, and then, you know, two groups spawned off from that, the Jedi and the Sith. Their ancient name was the Jedi. But in the G canon, it started off with Sith, and then the Sith kill each other, and then the Jedi show up. That's so fucking funny.
And apparently they're angry at the Jedi over a misunderstanding.
Well, the Sith believed, in the G canon, the Sith believed the Jedi caused their downfall, even though the Jedi didn't do anything.
Yeah, but like, I do like the fact that some of these Sith, like, and the ones who usually return from the dark side, it didn't start out as Sith. They were usually either Jedi or they came from the middle.
Yeah.
And then they went back. Like, I remember Generation Tech brought this up. Like, people who were born to it or who were brought up under it, they probably had no real incentive to go to the other side because they didn't know what it was like. All they ever knew was the dark side.
Yeah.
It'd be like, let's say you found an orphan in one of these war-torn countries, and they practice the dark side nonstop, and then one day you tell them they have to give it up.
Oh, straight up Sith. Yeah.
Imagine how scary that would be for them. It would be just like, you're asking me to give up the only thing I've ever known. You do realize how fucked up that is, right?
Actually, Kat, the one most interesting Sith, and I think I mentioned this to you guys before, is the one he was incredibly wealthy. He had everything. He had all this information. He had friends and family. He would have parties and celebrating stuff. He didn't do anything evil because the only thing that made him practice the dark side was the pursuit of knowledge. So all he did was use his Sith-like practices to get a hold of any information possible, and he lived a peaceful life. And the dude died of old age, and nothing happened. It's like the one Sith that did nothing evil. Interestingly enough,
Yeah. And the funny thing about the Sith is like they're one of the two biggest threats to the Jedi. The other one they usually employ.
I
Like,
heard some people say the second biggest threat is the Mandalorians.
that's the other one. Like the Sith usually get the Mandalorians help. Like they go to the one thing other than the Jedi that can kill them, and they're like, "Yeah, I need you to work for me." Okay.
You don't like Jedi? Yeah, I don't like Jedi either.
Yeah, the only difference, and the thing is, both have a legitimate gripe against the Jedi and the EU. Both have reasons to hate them. I can't say I blame them either.
Yeah.
Like the Jedi are pricks in the EU. Like I like them, but God, are they pricks? What about you, Kat? You got a EU preference or a G-canon preference?
The thing is, when it comes to things nowadays, I don't have preferences because I'm always there, like I'm waiting to be disappointed. Because like going to a different franchise now, like with Bayonetta, for example, with Bayonetta 3. I have been watching the trailers for the new game, and I'm like, what the hell am I watching? Because there's something called Chaos Gears. Is that a reference to Chaos Emeralds from Sonic? All of a sudden, it's multiverse of madness, time traveling nonsense. I'm like, okay, we've officially jumped the shark.
Yeah. Like, actually, Dan, maybe you can help me correct me if this is wrong. Were Valkorion and Palpatine the most enduring Siths, or was there a worse one? Because I can't think of a worse one.
Oh, and what in general?
Yeah, an EU or G-canon. Like, was there a Sith more enduring than them?
I mean, I often hear that who am I thinking about? I often hear from people that Darth Krayt could rival both of them or Darth Talon, but that's not my opinion.
Oh, I don't know much about Darth Talon. I remember she was hot as hell, but that was about it.
Yeah, that's all anyone remembers.
I'm sorry. I'm a heterosexual male who has urges. You cannot blame me for this.
Hey, look, be careful, because if last I hear, Darth Talon kills people for nothing.
Okay, yeah, that is a bit off-putting and a bit of a boner killer, but oh well.
Yeah.
But
Now,
yeah,
I've heard Darth
she'll
Krayt. Oh, I'm sorry. What did you say, Kat?
No, I was gonna say with Dark Talon, she'll force choke you while she's fucking you.
Oh, now that image is in my head. Thanks.
ooh, yeah, that's an unpleasant mental image. But yeah, Valkorion was probably the worst. Like this guy died, reborn, died again. Like he knew how to cheat death, worse than Plagueis.
Hey, look, at least he could do it. I mean, Plagueis tried, but he just couldn't achieve it.
No, he could just keep people alive, I think.
But not himself.
Valkyria found a way to like jump into other bodies.
Oh, I remember that. No, it's like Palpatine said, he could save everyone else but not himself. So it's like he could probably, affect anyone else's lifespan, but he couldn't save his own, which is hilarious.
He was like, let me. Yeah.
Didn't he? You probably know more about the EU than me, Kat. Didn't Plagueis want immortality?
Plagueis wanted immortality. This is the one thing. Like most of the Sith, like what they always have this one common goal. It's immortality, because for them, immortality is like that's the ultimate power. But the thing is, it's like it's so difficult to get to that point, because even like let's look at Valkorion. His immortality was, oh, I'm gonna possess your body. That was basically his immortality. It wasn't like, okay, this body of mine is gonna stay alive forever.
Yeah, he was weird, like very, very weird, and Yeah, I liked Darth Mar's last stand against him when he was told to kneel. He's like, "I never again will I kneel to you. It is you who is afraid of death, Valkyria. I do not. I will not kneel." And he died on his feet for it. I'm like, Darth Mar is probably the most respectable Sith out there. Like, there's him and no one else. Well, no, him and Malgus are like the Sith at their best.
Right. No, the irony there, and I always say this, is that Jedi can or Force users who are selfless can become Force ghosts. So ironically enough, they get, immortality, and the Sith wants to just take. The Force is like, nope, you've spent your whole life taking, you get jack shit from me. You've been taken from me your whole fucking life. Now that I'm making running things, now I take from you. So the Force just absorbs.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, Darth Mar became a Force ghost basically. Like because he had like unfinished business, he was allowed to become a Force ghost for some reason.
Actually, I will give the EU this, because in the G canon, Sith get no chance. I mean, yeah, no chance of anything after death. But in the EU, Sith can become Dark Force Ghost. But what really sucks about the EU is that if you become a Force Ghost in the EU, there's a time limit. You can't do it forever. In the G canon, there isn't a time limit. You get literal immortality. But in the EU, either A, you have to find different ways of dark side sorcery to last longer, or rely on your hatred, or B, as a Jedi, you know that eventually you're gonna become one with the Force, and you can't be a Force ghost anymore.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about the Sith. Like, regardless of the religion, I've kind of gotten to where I'm like, I do not see the point of immortality. If I lived forever, I would waste my time constantly.
I want immortality, dude. Like, not just for me. I want immortality for all life because I despise death at every turn. I just hate it.
Well, if I knew there was an afterlife, I'd be fine with that. I'd just be like, please tell me the afterlife at least has some closure, or at the very least I won't be bored. That's my main concern.
Dude, if I was God, the afterlife could just be a place that if you want to stay there for a bit, hibernate, fine, but you're not dying.
Oh, yeah, no, if I get there and there's a God, I'm asking if he can stay away from me for a couple of years, because he does scare me.
Wow.
I'm sorry, but this is a guy who flooded the earth because he had inbred grandkids running around in the Hebrew Bible. Are you really that scared?
Yeah, he sure did. God, okay, well, I'm sorry, religious people, but God's going to be canceled in 5 minutes.
No. What about you, Kat? If you could be immortal, would you take it?
The thing is, the issue is like if I'm immortal, the problem that goes along with that is that everyone around me is going to die. And then it's going to be like, okay, so what's the point? It's like everyone I know is dying. Then I'm going to have to now make relationships with people again, only for them to die again. So for me, it's like, no, I wouldn't want immortality. Would I like to live for a long time? Like, would I like to live until I'm 90? Yeah, like, absolutely. But do I want to live forever? No. Like, I would like to live to an old age. That's what I'll take.
So you're saying you'll basically be Logan?
Yeah, no, I'll be Logan.
Yeah. No, I find it funny in Logan. He looks at in the movie. He looks at the fucking X-Men comics like I think he's having Vietnam flashbacks as he's looking at those fucking comics.
Yeah, I think Space Monkey described it best. It's the Dracula dilemma.
Well, my thing is, if you make everyone immortal, then there won't be a problem. It'll be just like, okay.
There'll be a problem. The world will get overpopulated eventually.
Hey, Nathan, you know what I told you? Just make the Earth expand infinitely. The end.
There's got to be a problem with doing that. Though, like, nothing comes without consequence.
And make the universe expand infinitely too.
No, no. The problem at the end of the day is you will have people who are upset with people living for long, because that's the thing. People are envious of each other. So, for example, if we could live forever, you would have people who got so filthy rich, while other people got so dirt broke, not because of government making deals for corporations, but rather because people are making poor choices and other people aren't. You'd see this massive difference in wealth, and obviously you would have like the whole revolutions and everything of that nature happening. So that's kind of the problem with people living forever, is that the envy that a lot of people hold for one another would just get like really bad under those circumstances.
Okay,
Man,
hey Kat, are Space Marines really immortal but not invincible?
oh.
No, so thing is, Space Marines aren't immortal. They just live for a long time. There was a Space Marine, I think, that was aged, I don't know, was it 10, 20, 30,000 years, because he encountered some alien species that basically accelerate time when you encounter them, so you age rapidly. So he aged by like tens of thousands of years and he was still alive. So basically, what was discovered that Space Marines do age and they can die. It's just that they age at a really slow rate compared to like your normal humans.
Yeah, I gotta confess, from what little I've been looking into the Warhammer universe, because after I met you, Kat, I actually started learning more about it.
Uh huh.
It sounds fucked up. It sounds very fucked up. I would hate to live in it.
Oh yeah, no, like it's absolutely fucked up. Like you need to understand that in Warhammer, war is forever. War is never gonna end. You are always going to battle to die for the Emperor or to die for the sake of the Elder. Like you always gonna be fighting that thing, and that's how Warhammer is. And for example, it's like the training required to become a space marine. You now need to spend, I think, a few days in a dangerous jungle. Then in this dangerous jungle, you need to survive. And I think you need to survive and make your way to a certain point. If you get injured or die, shame. Too bad, so sad. If you
Yeah,
get and yeah, like they don't care. And think it's like if after all of that you get the surgeries and things because you now need an additional heart, an additional lung, all of this stuff. If you now are going through that process of having your body altered, and you don't take to it, and your body gets messed up, like yeah, yeah, no, you'll be sent back home, and
Bless
you'd
you,
be
by the way.
excuse me.
I thought you sneezed, so I said bless you.
Oh, yeah, no, and then for example, so then if you get messed up from the surgeries and all that stuff, you'll get sent home and people treat you like a hero because it's like, yeah, you know what? At least you survive something that very few people actually do survive. And then the Space Marines that do survive the process and the additional organs are fine with them, they go on to be Space Marines.
Uh,
yeah, but they have some good lines in those games. Like my favorite one is still "Even gods may die."
Oh
Either
yeah,
that.
no, that's
I'm sorry. What?
yeah, no, the one thing I wanted to say is that like when it comes to like the lines of dialogue you can get from Warhammer, it's like wow, this is so amazing.
oh
Yeah,
yeah, I
I
from
feel like
from
that.
what I've seen, everything looks good, especially the dialogue.
Yeah, I like that one and "Abandon Reason, No Only War."
Yep.
Like those are some. Like there's a mod for that Space Marine game where it makes you a blood crimson crypt or whatever, and he has all these funny trash talk lines, and I'm just like, okay, I like the Tau, but the Space Marines are definitely usurping them for my favorite spot.
Oh no, the thing is the Tower basically are basically the communists of the universe.
Unfortunately, that's the one thing that stops them from being my favorite.
Yeah, no, like what the Tau do. So the Tau will be like, yeah, no, we found other alien species. They will flip and slowly sterilize you so that you're incapable of reproducing. That's how they feel about other species.
Uh,
Well,
yeah,
honestly, for me, it really depends on the method. Like empire socialism, like how the empire, like how the empire basically nationalizes the economy. They're nationalizing commerce. I'm like, fuck that. But Starfleet from Star Trek, I'll take that communism. I will, because honestly, infinite resources, so why not? But in terms of the empire, no, fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. That's so messed up.
uh, yeah, like it's a really messed up universe. I like it, but God, I would hate to live in it.
The
Yeah, no,
Warhammer
like
universe?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
like wow, like this is the thing. It's like how can I put it? For example, if let's say you were Sister of Fate, so these are like the nuns of the Warhammer universe. If you as a Sister of Fate and you've sinned in any way, they will strap you to a whole fucking battle robot that's like you're getting crucified, and you're not protected. Your body is easily exposed, and you could die in one shot. But it's like, yeah, no, my sister, this is your penance. Go and fight the demons for us in a very brutal way. Like, get ready, it's your time. Go and repent. We hope you come back alive.
Yeah, you know the funniest thing about Warhammer though? One time I looked up tribute videos to video games that were using Sabaton songs. I found one for Warhammer with Sabaton playing. And I'm like, okay, if they make another Warhammer game, they need to use Sabaton in the trailer because this is too fitting. Like the song "Lifetime of War" comes to mind because it feels like generations of men just die needlessly. Like it's like the Great War, but worse.
Oh yeah, no, like, how can I put it? It's like there's a planet in the Warhammer universe where, in order to get forgiveness for the fact that the planet in its past didn't want to serve the Empire, because they were like, why are we paying taxes to the Empire? We don't want to pay taxes. And obviously to apologize for all of that, because obviously on the planet itself there was like nuclear fallout and all those things. Like a lot of stuff happened on this planet. But in order to now get forgiveness, is that they send young men that they've trained to go to war, serve loyally and stuff. So what they do is they train them, they give them to the empire, and these men, the way they are so conditioned to serve and die in war, is that they will rush into the trench against an enemy, and they will kill themselves just to kill everyone else and be like, yes, I have served my purpose.
Uh, yeah, the worst thing for me though was like the Emperor himself. I'm just like, so this guy's just alive but barely, and if he comes back, he'd probably be disgusted by what he sees has happened. He's like, "What the fuck happened? It was fine when I left."
The thing is, you need to understand the Emperor of Man. This is one thing. When he was Emperor, he was like, listen, do not call me a god. Do not treat me as a god. I am an atheist. As soon as he got put on the golden throne for life support, everyone's like, guys, God is with us. The Emperor, he is our God.
Honestly, you know what? That's another thing. People that are quote unquote followers of others not paying attention to what they're saying. Like the creator of Buddhism said, don't worship any gods, the Buddha, don't worship any gods, don't worship any religion. That leads to selfishness and you're sacrificing yourself for this and that. And what do they do? Well, now you have portions of Buddhism that worship him. It's like he said not to worship anything. Makes no sense.
Oh, you want to make
I don't.
less sense? His favorite son turned on him.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, because I don't know if it was. Oh, guys, I'm gonna say this last bit because it seems like I might have to go. Someone has asked me to get on VC, but the thing is, it's like for yeah. So the thing is with his favorite son. I don't know if it was a thing of he was like, no, my father is a god, and his father's like, no, can you stop it, please? I'm not a god. Can you stop it? And that's what he got set for, is because his father was like, listen, I'm not a god. Can you please stop? And the son was like, no, you are God.
You know what? They're the dark world. I love that where Loki says, "We are gods." You know, it's like we are not gods. We live, we breathe, and we die. It's so weird because in most Marvel lore they are gods, but in the MCU they're just like what, super aliens or some shit like that.
I guess.
Yeah, no, like that's the thing. Like if you wanted to speak about like actual gods, it would be like your primordials in the Marvel comics, like these great beings of immense power and stuff. Like for example, Lady Death, for example, like she is a god. Like she is the god of death. Like
That's a
Yeah.
full-on god. But like the other gods, like your Olympians, your Asgardian gods, like yeah, no, they're not actual gods. They just like super aliens. That's basically it.
Well, I more or less like either A, they're super aliens, or B, I consider them demigods. Because, a lot of these characters you mentioned, their powers come from something mystical. At least nine, because DC's magic, Marvel's science. I go by it that way. But anyway, they get a lot of they get a lot of their powers from mystical sources. So if they're not omniscient, I consider them like a lower tier god. But that's just how I see it.
I w-
Well,
I
I
wonder if Odin in the Marvel comics was what did you say, omniscient? Ugh.
Omniscient basically means that you're top tier god. You're like the presence or the one above all. Like these are in DC and Marvel, the presence and the one above all. These are the gods that they say the Christian and Jewish Bible is based off of. Like these infinite beings. Like if you're a god that has limits, then you're a lower tier god, or you're like someone who's known as a god. But if you're omniscient, you're an actual god, according to a lot of fiction or something like that. It basically
Yeah,
means
no, that makes sense.
you're infinite. You're.
okay, guys. Well, I think we should end it here. But
All right, later, dudes.
yeah, thanks for coming,
Well, thanks
Kat.
for the conversation. Pleasure.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. See y'all around.
Honestly, I actually, Nathan, the only reason why I joined was because you said Kat would be here. I haven't heard from Kat in weeks, so that's the only reason why
Oh
I'm
yeah.
here.
Oh yeah, no, the thing is when it comes to when you guys invite me for spaces, it's like I just got home from work, tired, or the powers are like that's the unfortunate thing. It's like usually when you send invites and stuff, it's like I'm busy with something. But if you send on the weekend, I might be free cause like 8 p.m. my time, which is 2 p.m. your time. I'll be playing like D&D and stuff. The Saturday and Sunday. So it's basically a thing of like if you send it on a certain time on the weekend, like before 8 p.m. my time, then yeah, no, I can be on.
Well, it was awesome to see you guys. See you around.
Yeah. See you around.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.